Right now, we're operating a 7-figure property business across 44 properties using the rent-to-rent strategy, where we're renting properties from landlords and then relaying it out for a profit. Now, I did not start off with a fat stack of cash. We started with one property and then built up from there. Let me show you something quick. This is one of our properties that we're operating in South London, and these are the figures that was generated in the last 30 days. Now, if we're looking at this year alone, mind you, we're in May currently, so we're 5 months into the year. This was the overall amount that was generated across that time period, just a little over £600,000. So in this full course, I'm going to walk you through exactly how this was built, how you yourself can get started off with this business on the right foot, the best types of deals to go for, and more importantly, the worst types of deals that you should be avoiding at all costs. I'm also going to be showing you live landlord phone calls I've actually pitching them the idea of rent to rents, trying to get them to give me their properties. And there's one instance where I actually went to go visit the landlord on a viewing, trying to convince them to actually give me the property. You'll see me handling all their objections, answering all their questions, and for this, it will give you a much better idea of how to approach them as well. I'm also going to be showing you the best types of areas to target, how to find hidden gold mine areas that most people miss completely, and how you can use this to your advantage. I'm also going to be walking through the biggest mistakes people make when they get started off with this business and how it finishes them off completely before they're able to build up some momentum. I'm also going to be taking you behind the scenes at some of our properties, showing you exactly what the whole process looks like. And I'm also having a sit down with my business partner, Andrew, and he runs the entire operation of the whole property portfolio. We're going to be walking you through how to go about best setting up the property and also how to manage it in a way that can allow you to maximize profits completely. And by the end of this course right here, you'll have a much better understanding of whether or not this business model right here is for you and how to go about kickstarting it off to actually bag your first deal. Now, I'm actually going to walk you through a live example of one of our properties right now, walking you through the numbers so you have a much better idea of what's really involved with it. Come take a look. So this is the actual property in question right now. This is a 4-bedroom house in South London that we're currently running as an Airbnb. And just so you know that this isn't some random property that I got from Airbnb that I'm pretending to be mine, I'm going to go to the calendar section of this specific property right here, just so you can see that I'm not waffling, etc., etc. So this is the calendar for September. You'll see that each day has a line crossed off. That means those days have been fully booked off. Most of our bookings do come outside of Airbnb, places like booking.com. You scroll down here, you'll see that as well. It's a nice little Airbnb booking. We go right here. A lot of the days also crossed off too. So with that property right there, we're actually renting it from the landlord and with their permission, relaying it out as an Airbnb. But right now, let's actually do the maths on that specific deal to see realistically how much we're actually making from it on a monthly basis. Now, the rent on that specific property is £3,000 per month. Now, on average, we're charging guests around £375 per night on average across the year. Sometimes it's more, other times less, but this is the average. Now, in terms of how often this place is booked up on average, we're looking at about 70% of the times across the year. If you're looking at that on a monthly basis, it works out to, on average, 3 weeks in a month, we have this place booked up. Now, some months are more, other months are less, but this is a nice average. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna take that £375 daily rate and we're gonna times that by 21 days, which equals to 3 weeks in a month, of course, and that equals to £7,875 in revenue we're generating per month. Now, we need to minus the monthly expenses with that as well. We've got the fees that Airbnb and booking.com charge you on average for this property. We're looking at about £985. We've also got the monthly rent on this place as well. That's £3,000. We've also got the monthly bills for this property. You're looking at council tax, gas, electric, Wi-Fi, amongst other little things as well. We're gonna total that to £400, and you also have the cleaning costs as well. So this is when the cleaning team comes in and cleans the property after each person checks out. Now this varies from month to month, but on average for this place, it's around £900 per month. Now, when we take the total revenue we've made for this month and we minus it by all of the expenses that we just listed, that leaves us with £2,590 in pure profit we're making from this place that we don't even own. And in this training right here, I'm gonna show you the exact system to follow to allow you to kickstart this business off and actually secure your very first deal over the next 90 days. This right here was the very first property deal that I'd actually taken on that you're seeing on the screen. Now, this is a 2-bedroom apartment located in Slough, which is about 20 minutes away from Heathrow Airport. The rent on it, as you can see, was £1,250. Now, I can't lie to you, the property itself, it wasn't really in the best condition. This is what it pretty much looked like before I'd taken it on, and this is what it looked like after I'd taken it on. I mean, I actually did some serious work to get this place up and running right here. So in total, I spent around £7,000 on this this specific deal right here. We're talking to cover the first month's rent, also the deposit as well. We're talking to cover the furnishing costs as well. And I actually did a lot of the work myself to the property, to cut down on costs as well. And that amounted to, just a little over £7,000. And I swear to God, I kid you not, when I launched that property, the next day, the day after I launched it, I actually received this specific booking right here, which was a 7-night booking. You can see the guest paid just a little over £918. And not long after that, I received 2 other bookings, which were these 2 bookings. One of them booked for 3 nights. The total amount that was paid to me after expenses was £492. The other one booked for 2 nights. And the amount I was paid for that booking after fees was £328. So literally within days of me launching this property, after I got it fully ready, I'd secured 3 bookings that I was paid a total of £1,738. And let's not forget, the rent on that place is £1,250. The bills, you're probably looking at around £300 per month. So just from those 3 bookings alone, I'd made more than enough to cover the rent and the bills, and there was a little bit over for the profits. And now the rest of the bookings I received for that month was complete profit. Now, the first thing that we need to look at and that I need you to understand, just so you're able to get ahead of most people when starting this business model, is looking at why a lot of people that get started off with this business model actually end up failing. Now, look, don't get me wrong, this business model right here is very profitable. It definitely 100% works. So why is it that a lot of people do get started off with this business model right here and don't end up succeeding? Succeeding, should I say? And honestly, one of the biggest reasons for this is because they get their analysis a lot of the times completely wrong. What do I mean by that? Well, a lot of the times they'll end up taking on, deals that are not the best. They'll get the numbers incorrect. They'll do the numbers wrong. They might take on a deal in a location that just doesn't work that great for that sort of thing. And honestly, I've actually spoken to quite a few people in the past to where they've made these errors, they've made these mistakes, they've missed certain key things. And because of that, it led to them not doing so well with this business and ultimately, not succeeding. And again, it came down to the simple reason of them getting their analysis completely wrong. So right now, what I want to do, I actually want to give you a walkthrough, a step-by-step walkthrough of another one of our deals that we've taken on, just so you can kind of see not just the numbers involved with that deal, but also how we were able to establish that it's actually a good deal. So this right here is another one of our deals. So this is a studio property located in South London, and the rent on it is about £1,200 per month. And we actually have 6 of these studios in this one specific building right here. So the first thing I'm going to do is actually run you through the numbers of this deal. But then not only that as well, I'm also going to show you why this deal is such a very good deal and why most people would overlook deals like these as well. So first things first, let's break down the numbers. The average amount we charge per night for this place is around £130 per night. And also the average amount of time that we actually have that place booked up across the month is around 70%, which works out to 3 weeks. Now, just a little side note as well, 70% occupancy is actually the national average occupancy rate, which basically means across the country, or at least in the UK or in England, in most towns and cities, the average occupancy rate that a lot of these Airbnbs, these service accommodation, and also hotels experience as well, is 70%. So that's just a little side note for you. Anyways, back to the maths. So we're going to take £130. We're going to times that by 21 days. That's going to equal to £2,730 that this property makes in revenue per month. So those guys charge anywhere between 15% to 18% commission. Now, let's minus the monthly expenses involved with this specific deal to see how much is left over. First cost you've got is obviously the rent, which is £1,200. You've also got the fee that Airbnb and Booking.com and other OTA platforms charge you as well. Now, this is going to vary, especially with us, because we get a lot of people booking with us directly rather than going on Airbnb and Booking.com. But the average fee for that amount we pay, I'd say, is around £345 on average per month. Now, we've also got the monthly bills as well. Now, the very good thing about this studio is that, the whole building itself was before a very, very large house. So what happened was each of the individual rooms was converted into a self-contained studio. So that means that the monthly bills are very, very cheap. We're literally looking at, £100 per unit per month. So that's what we're going to put, £100. We've also got the monthly cleaning costs as well. Again, this does vary, but for this specific unit, on average, we're looking at £300. Now that brings the total monthly expenses to £1,945. So if we take how much money we'd made, from an average month, which is £2,730, and we minus that from the monthly expenses that we just calculated, that leaves us with a total profit of £785 we're making in pure profit each and every month. Now, one thing I will say, the very good thing about properties like that is it doesn't really cost that much to, fund those deals because they are quite small places, especially to furnish them. It's honestly not going to cost that much at all. Yeah, you need to pay the rent, deposit, but in terms of furnishing costs and setup costs, it's honestly not going to be that much at all. But it's making a nice amount per month in pure profit. And like I mentioned before, we have a total of 6 in that building right there. Now, here's the interesting thing about that specific deal right there. The location, if I'm being honest with you, if most people were to look at the location, they would think like this is a crappy location. Like there's no way I'm getting a deal over here. And the deal itself is actually located in an area called Camberwell, which is not too far away from like Peckham and all these other places. Basically, not too far away from the hood and the ghetto. And to be fair, that place is kind of the hood and the ghetto in a way. And honestly, when I first saw the location as well, I was even questioning it for a second. I was thinking, ooh, I'm not sure, man. Like, there's not really that much going on. It's not really, it's not like central London or a lot of these hot spots in London. Like, you don't get many tourists there. There's not that many attractions. Like, why would people come to this area and actually book Airbnbs and service accommodation? And honestly, that's what most people look for when they're analyzing a location to see if it will work well for Airbnb and service accommodation. But we've got a specific formula that we follow that allows us to even identify areas that most people wouldn't even look at or would turn down. But for us, we spotted certain things in those specific areas that are like, ooh, you know what? We can make this work and we can make some very good money. Just a quick one, what I've taken you through right now gives you a surface level and a basic understanding on how to go about actually analyzing an area. However, if you want the exact method that we use where we're filtering these deals very heavily to determine what deal actually works thoroughly, I've actually put together what we call a deal filter playbook. This is the exact playbook that we use whenever any deal comes our way so that we're thoroughly analyzing them to see if they're good to go for rent-to-rent service accommodation. On top of this, it actually walks you through the 4 gates that we run deals through before taking them on. We're talking about the demand, what kills the deal, the numbers on the deal, and also everything to carry out and do and assess at the viewing itself, so that you pretty much know exactly what to take on and also exactly what to avoid as well. Again, this is the same deal filter playbook that we use before taking on any deals. I've actually left the link in the description box for you to pretty much access that. And in these scenarios, we're not looking at targeting, people that are on holiday or people that are coming to sightsee or whatever the case may be. We're looking at, for example, targeting contractors, people that are in the area working on certain projects. This could be engineering projects, construction projects, not just in that specific area, but also the surrounding areas as well, not too far away from there. We're also looking at hospitals, for example, especially if those hospitals are quite big and quite major. For that specific place, believe it or not, a lot of the people that we have booking are actually attending the hospital not too far away. So that's another thing we're looking at as well, that a lot of people just dismiss completely. Not only that as well, we're also looking at universities. Now, universities is something that a lot of people don't look at, but this is an excellent way for you to actually go about generating more bookings for yourself. Because students, for example, would need accommodation to book Airbnbs and service accommodation that are actually attending those specific universities. Now, some people may be thinking, why wouldn't they just rent a place long term? Why would they need to book an Airbnb and pay all that money when they can save a lot more money by just renting somewhere long term? See, I got to the question before you did. The reason why a lot of students would choose to rent Airbnbs and service accommodations as opposed to long-term normal rentals is because a lot of them can't. And I'm specifically talking about international students as well. A lot of these universities have students from China, for example, students from the States, and just students from all across the world that are coming to London or wherever to attend the universities there to study. And of course, when it comes to actually renting properties long-term in the UK, as a tenant, you have to go through, the right to rent check. You have to fit a certain criteria. You have to be making a certain amount of income. You have to go through long processes and jump through so many hoops, etc., etc. So a lot of these guys will just prefer the convenience and the easiness of just booking somewhere, an Airbnb and service accommodation, just like that. And honestly, we've actually had a lot of big bookings from students as well. And I'll actually show that to you in a little bit. Not only that as well, but we also look at large corporate companies that are based in a certain area, that have their headquarters in a certain area as well, because sometimes they have people, whether that's staff members, clienteles, that are relocating to that specific area, temporarily on a midterm basis. And because of that, they're gonna need a place to stay. And honestly, these are just some of the demands that you can go about targeting to be able to get very sexy deals in areas that most people would dismiss and wouldn't even take seriously. But the beautiful thing is that just means a lot less competition for yourself, which makes it easier for you to go about getting a deal for yourself. And you know what? Here's some extra sauce and some game for you. What I used to do, and this is when I first actually started off this business, I used to basically contact the hotels in a certain area, and then I used to pretend to be someone that wanted to book their place. But then as I'm doing that, I'm trying to find out like the amount of bookings that they've got and how often they're booked up. And if you go about it the right way, you can get that information from them. Like, but you have to be smooth with it, you know what I mean? You have to be a smooth talker, but that's what I was doing, man. That's what I was doing. So that's another little thing that you can do too. And you know what? Another thing that sometimes that I used to do, not all the times, I used to drive around, go to the local hotels and actually see the types of people that are staying in there. So if you go to the car park, a lot of the times, you'll see a lot of these work vans. You know, these people that are working in nearby construction sites or in different projects in the area or in the surrounding areas. And, you know, if they're staying in that hotel, in the evening times, for example, they'll come there, they'll park their cars in the car park, and then a lot of the times it'll have their company details on it. So I'd be able to see that, take it down, and then reach out to those guys. But not only that, I'd be able to see the type of demand that's there and the types of people that are actually booking, you know, hotels, Airbnbs, et cetera, in that specific area as well. So that's just another little, you know, side tip for you. Now, there is a massive common myth that I want to bust once and for all when it comes to doing Airbnb, specifically doing Airbnb in London, because a lot of people think that you cannot do Airbnb in London because of the London 90-day Airbnb rule. And you know what? I'm going to be so honest with you. The first deal I ever got was actually outside of London, even though I was based in London at the time. And part of the reason for that was because I thought that it wasn't doable in London as well, because of the London 90-day Airbnb rule. Now, in case you don't know what this rule is, basically, this rule has been in place since 2017. And what it means is, if you are looking to let your property out as a short-term rental or Airbnb, you can only do so for a maximum of 90 days throughout the year. That is the allowance that you basically have. Now, what a lot of people think is, okay, in that scenario, if I can only rent my place out as an Airbnb for 90 days in a year, surely, you know, there's no money to be made. I mean, what am I going to do for the rest of the year? And to be fair, I get where they're coming from, but they just don't know what I'm about to share with you, because there is a very simple way to get around the 90-day rule. And we have been doing this for years. And I swear to God, right now, the vast majority of our properties are located in London. And we do this full time. We run these properties as full-time Airbnbs and service accommodation completely legally. And we make very good money from doing so. This is how we're able to do it. Now, pretty much the 90-day rule is your allowance to be able to let your property out as a short let. And there are different types of bookings that you get with service accommodation and Airbnbs. You know, you got short let bookings, and these are bookings that are less than 28 days. You've got mid-term let bookings, and these are bookings that are over 28 days. And then you've got long-term bookings. I mean, these are bookings that are like, you know, 3, 4, 5, 6 months at a time. Now, if you're getting bookings that are less than 28 days, that's going to eat into your 90-day allowance. For example, if you've got a property, I'm coming to book your property. I book it for 5 nights. Okay, cool. I book it for 5 nights. Now, your 90-day allowance goes down to 85 nights. However, let's say now I come and book your property and I book it for 45 nights. Well, because that's no longer a short let booking, but that's now a mid-term let booking, that's not going to have an impact or an effect on the London 90-day rule, because that only applies to short-term bookings, which are bookings that are less than 28 days. Any bookings that are over 28 days or over 1 month doesn't eat into your allowance. So that means that if you have 90 days left, or if you still have your 90-day allowance and I come and book your property for 45 nights, guess what? You've still got that 90-day allowance. So this is the very, very simple way of being able to get around the 90-day rule, and how we've been doing it for years. You know, this is how we do it, and this is how we do it. Oh man. But in all seriousness, this is actually how we do it. Now, some people may believe, well, that all sounds good, but you know, when people are booking service accommodation and Airbnbs, they're not booking for, you know, 28 nights, 30 nights, 1 month, 2 months, 3 months. They're not doing that. They're only booking for 1 or 2 nights. You know what? I'm going to debunk that myth in a little bit as well. Just watch. Now, I'm actually going to show you something right now. And the thing I'm going to show you, honestly, I've never seen anyone share it before. And I've never shared it before. But it's a very quick, but a very powerful way for you to be able to, assess and analyze an area and to see roughly how much money you could be making per month or how much you could be generating per month from taking on properties in those specific areas on a rent-to-rent agreement. Of course, where you're renting properties from landlords and then re-letting it out. It's funny. I don't even think I mentioned the word rent-to-rents. Like, that's what this strategy is called. It's called rent-to-rents. I think this is the first time I mentioned it. I should have mentioned it at the start. So my bad for that. But anyways, I'm going to select a super random area and then I'm actually going to walk you through a quick way for you to be able to see how viable that area is for doing this. Come take a look. So first things first, what I'm going to do is jump on Open Rent and actually search for properties to rent in my chosen location. So let's say I'm putting in Canary Wharf, for example, which is located in London. So I put that in there. It's got a nice little radius right there, or a nice little circle. And what I'm going to do, I'm just going to adjust the filters so that it's not showing me bedrooms. It's actually showing me properties. So the minimum rent I'm putting is £1,500. Now, of course, this is going to vary from area to area because I know up north, for example, in the north of England, £750 a month, you're getting like a 4-bedroom house. But unfortunately, that's not like that in London. Cool. So I'm just going to adjust the filters. Now, I'm seeing over here the properties that are available to be rented. And what I'm also going to do as well, I'm also going to be looking at 2-bedroom apartments for this example. I mean, this could work for all types of apartments, but for this example, we're going to look at 2 beds. Cool, no problem. So these are all the 2 beds that are available in Canary Wharf at this current moment in time. So we can see the rental prices that these 2-bedroom apartments are actually going for. Now, what we want to do, we don't necessarily want to select the most expensive one. We don't want to be like, okay, let's rent the most expensive one and see how much money we can make. But at the same time, we also don't want to look at necessarily the cheapest one. We kind of want to look at the places that are a little bit in between, kind of in the middle, if that makes sense. So in this scenario, I'm seeing certain places of 3,900, 3,800, 3,700, yada, yada, yada. And I'm seeing places for 2,000 as well. So let's say, for example, I come across this place right here. It's a 2-bedroom flat. It's going for £3,250. Pretty nice, pretty decent. The place is okay looking, I guess. Nothing special. So what we're going to do now, we're going to go on the maps, open this up, and then we're going to click on maps so that we can see exactly where it is. So you can see, okay, this property is located right here where this red dot is. And you know what the crazy thing is? The Hilton Hotel is right there as well, which is a 5-star hotel. Or sorry, a 4-star. My mistake. Cool. So it's right there, yeah? So now, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to jump on Airbnb and then I'm going to do some research. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to type in that same area, Canary Wharf in London. And then this part right here is very important. So make sure you're following. The times that I'm going to choose to book this property, I'm going to select months. I'm going to select flexible, not months, my mistake. Flexible. And I'm going to choose the next 3 months, if that makes sense. So I'm going to choose this month, next month, and the month after that. The reason why I'm doing that is because I want to be able to see all of the properties that are available over the next 3-month period. Otherwise, if I just select September, for example, I'm only going to see the properties that are available in September, but not the properties that are already booked up, that may be available in October or November, whatever the case may be. But yeah, next 3 months, pretty decent. And also, how long would you like to stay? I would just put 1 month. This is very, very important. I'm going to explain why. So click search. Perfect. Now we can see how much these 2-bedroom, you know what? One thing I forgot to do, my mistake, forgive me. I forgot to adjust the filters over here. So what I've done, I've gone to filters. I'm going to type a place. I'm going to click entire homes. And then what I'm also going to do, the bedrooms, remember, the last property we looked at on Open Rent was a 2-bedroom. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to put 2 bedrooms. And then we're going to click show homes. So now it should show me mainly 2-bedroom apartments in the Canary Wharf area. So now what I'm going to do, we can see all these properties that are coming up. You can see there's one going for £11,000 for a 1-month booking for 1 month. One going for 7,000, another going for 5,000. You have another one going for 7,000. Like you have all these different prices. Like all these prices, or most of them, should I say, are a lot higher than the rent that we'd be paying, if that makes sense. So what we're gonna do now, we're actually gonna zoom in further because I wanna see specifically what properties are located next to my property that I just searched right now. So you remember the property that we checked on Open Rent, sorry, my mistake, it was right here. It was literally right there. So now if we go to Airbnb, literally it's gonna be right here. So now let's check out the surrounding properties. And these are all 2 beds, by the way. This person right here is charging just a little over £6,000 for a month to book. This person right here is charging £8,000. This person right here is charging £7,000, £7,600. Mind you, our property is right here, where my cursor is. The cheapest one is £4,000, £4,500, £5,000. I mean, look, these, I think you get what I'm saying. Like, these properties, if you wanted to book it for a month, are going to be a lot more than £3,250, which is very, very important for you to know. And it's not really going to be too hard for you to do the maths, even if you're taking, you know, a property that's not too expensive compared to the rest of these. Let's say, for example, we're taking this £5,000 property, £5,452 to book in a month. We take that, we subtract that by the rent and also the monthly bills as well, and also the cleaning costs as well. I mean, you can do the maths on that to see the profits that you're making from that. And again, that's not even the most expensive. Like, we got some ones that are like 8,000, 9,000. But you know what? Let me show you another example as well. And this example that I'm about to show you right now is going to be a pretty important one. Let's check another area. Let's check Fulham, for example, which is in West London. And in Fulham, we're going to be looking at 4-bedroom houses. We're not going to be looking at 2-bedroom houses. Again, this could work for any types of properties. I'm just selecting, random properties at this current moment in time. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to click search. There we go. We're in Fulham right now, as you can see. So remember, we're looking for 4 bedrooms. You can see the rent on these places. 4,000, 6,800. Wow, okay. 3,900. So there's a mixture. So between 3,900 till about 6,000, high 6,800. Cool, no problem. So now what we're gonna do, we're gonna go search again on Airbnb. We're gonna look in Fulham. Now follow along because this is very, very important. So we're gonna look in Fulham. We're gonna follow the exact same method that I showed you before. We're gonna select the current month and the following 2 months as well. And then how long would you like to stay? Select month. And over here where it says dates, months, and flexible, you're just gonna keep it at flexible. And then you're gonna click search. And then when you do that, you're gonna go on filters, and then you're gonna select entire homes. And then what we're gonna do, because we're only looking for 4 beds, we're gonna put that up to 4. I'm gonna click search. Now, have a look at this for a second, yeah? Do me a favor and have a look at this for a second. Look at the bookings. Look at these places. There's one place right here for £20,000 for a month. There's one place right here for 14,000. There's one place right here for 13,000. There's 12,000. There's 11,000. And obviously you got some cheaper ones here as well. 4,000. Come on, man. That's a 2-bed. That's a 2-bedroom. I don't know why I showed me 2 bedrooms, but this is okay. It's a 5-bedroom house. Yeah, like there's gonna be. It's showing you a mixture basically. It's showing you a mixture of different types of properties. Let's see this property for example. This property is a 4-bedroom house. And it's charging £12,000 a month, £12,800 a month. Let's see this property, for example. This property is going for £14,700. Again, we want to make sure these are actually 4 bedrooms. £14,790, £91 for a single month booking, and the rents you're paying for the same place is anywhere between £3,800 and also, higher end 6,850. I'm not saying that's cheap, but I'm just showing you the range, the gap between renting it long term and then relaying it out as a short term let. Now, let me address the elephant in the room right now. What is the elephant in the room? The elephant in the room that you may be thinking, and rightfully so, is why are you looking at places to book for 1 month? First of all, most people aren't going to be booking for 1 month. So what's the point of even doing that? If you're thinking that, fair play. But let me explain to you why exactly we did it that way and how you can do it too. The reason why we chose to do it that way is because you have to think about it like this. When people are booking service accommodation properties, or let's say, for example, let's use a hotel example. If you were to book a hotel for 1 night, and let's say that hotel charges £200 a night, for example, yeah? Cool, they charge you £200 a night. If you were to book that same place for 1 week, they'll offer you a little discount, maybe like a 5% discount, whatever the case may be, but there'll be some discount there, maybe 10%, whatever. If you book for a month, they will offer you a much bigger discount because you're booking, you're paying in bulk. You're booking for many, many nights in one go. And because of that, they want to incentivize you to do that. So they're going to give you a discount. And the exact same thing applies with Airbnbs and service accommodation. If I have a property that I'm letting out for £100 a night on Airbnb, if someone books it for 1 night, 2 nights, 3 nights, okay, cool, I'm going to charge them £100 a night. 4 nights, yep, charge them £100 a night. Okay, if they're booking a week, I give them a little bit of a discount. But if they're booking for a month, I'm going to have to give them a nice discount. Now, this does vary, but some people give 10%, 20%. Some people even give 30 and 40% discounts for people booking for a single month. But let's go with 30% because this is the discount that we give a lot of people for a lot of our properties that book for 1 month. So let's say we have a £100 per night property. If somebody now books that property for 1 month, instead of them paying £3,000, which would be for 30 nights, they'll be getting a 30% discount. So that means instead of them paying £3,000 to book for 1 month, they're paying £2,100 to book for 1 month. Now, remember what I said to you before. I said to you, the average occupancy rate or the average amount of time that we have our places booked up in a month in most towns and cities across the UK is 70%, which works out to 3 weeks in a month. Okay, cool. So now we have this one property where we'd given that person a discount and they paid £2,100 to book for a month instead of £100 per night across a 1 month period. But now let's say we have another property, the exact same property in that same area. And then we don't have someone coming to book for 1 month. We have, let's say, for example, multiple bookings across the month, for example. Let's say we booked up for 3 weeks in a month, 21 days, but then we have 5 bookings, 5 separate bookings, but in total it amounted to 21 days. And each person paid £100 per night. In that scenario, because we still charge £100 per night and we had it booked for 3 weeks, guess what? How much are we making? We're making £2,100. Do you see what I'm trying to say here? So because with the first property, we've given the person a 30% discount, the amount that you're making pretty much works out to the same as if you, with our second property, to where we had multiple people booking in a month, that totaled to, 3 weeks in a month, we're making the same amount. You know what I mean? So the biggest difference is the first property, it's less hassle. Because you have one person coming in, you have less checkouts, less time cleaners going there, etc., etc. So it's a lot less hassle. And of course, that's why you're giving them a discount. Now look, these are just rough numbers. But the reason why I wanted to explain this to you is because this is the reason why I walked you through that specific method. The method of checking the properties that are available in certain areas for 1 month to see how much they're charging, because the prices that you're seeing are already discounted prices. It ranges. Some people charge 10%, 20%, 30%, 40% discounts, if that makes sense. So it works out to a very similar amount anyways, that amount that someone would book for a month to someone that wouldn't book for a month, but will book on a night-by-night basis for 3 weeks in a month. Now, hopefully that makes sense. If you need to just kind of rewatch that again, just to kind of let it sink in, please do. But I just want to show you something now that's very, very important just to prove my point to you right now. So right now, I've just jumped back on Airbnb and I've just jumped back onto the page where we were looking for properties to book for 1 month in the Fulham area. There's a very important reason why I did that. Remember, we were looking at 4-bedroom properties. We could see there's one property here going for just a little over £14,700 to book for 1 month. Another one here, just a little under £14,000 to book for 1 month. Another one here, just a little under £10,000 to book for 1 month. And there's loads of other properties to book for stupid prices or whatever the case may be. But just in case you're still in doubt that people wouldn't pay that amount to book properties in that specific area or whatever area in general, I want to show you something right now. I'm going to go to our booking system. And right now, what you can see is the calendar section for some of our Airbnb properties or some of our service accommodation properties. There's one specific section I want you to pay attention to. And this is the Shorrods, can't even pronounce it properly. Shorrods Road section, which is where my cursor is right now. So you can see there's one booking by the name of Pedro S. That's booked that place. And that Shorrods Road place, by the way, that is in Fulham. And that is a 4-bedroom house. Let's see what booking we received. You can see Pedro booked our property for 58 nights and he paid £20,300
to be exact, to book our 4-bedroom house in Fulham. Mind you, the rent on that place is £5,750. So it's not cheap, don't get me wrong, but you can do the maths on that to see what the profit margins are looking like. Now, when it comes to analyzing service accommodation and Airbnb deals, there is another tool that you can use called AirDNA. The only reason why we don't really use AirDNA too much, to be fair, is because it's not 100% accurate all the times. We have our own methods that we go through, and this involves us analyzing, of course, the demand in a certain area. We're looking at, different things, like I mentioned before, in terms of the different demands, the different attractions. You have your universities, your hospitals, your tourist attractions, your corporate companies, the different projects that are taking place, and just amongst a lot of other things that we're looking at to paint a picture to see if an area can work well or not for this particular model. And also another thing that we're doing is we're looking at other service accommodations, Airbnbs, and also hotels in the area as well. How many of them are there, how booked up they are as well. We're looking at all these different things along with the different demands or the different things that bring people to the area. And then we're putting this all together, and that's allowing us to determine whether or not an area can work well for this business model or not.
Heads up, what I've walked you through right now is the basics when it comes to actually running the numbers on the deal itself. It gives you a decent idea, but there's another level to this. And this is the true level that determines whether or not this deal actually wins or it actually loses. Now, in our deal filter playbook, I show you the exact rules and process that we follow to ensure that we're setting as accurate as a nightly rate as possible to allow us to essentially maximize profits. On top of this, it will also show you the different levels there are when it comes to how to go about setting your nightly rate so that you're protected in the best case, of course, mid case, but also protected in the worst case as well. This is pretty much the exact method that we follow when it comes to calculating the deals that we're looking to take on before we ever make a move on it. Again, left the link in the description box for you to access that. Cool.
Now in this training right here, I'm gonna go very in depth when it comes to showing you the best ways of approaching landlords when it comes to actually getting them to be willing to work with you and ultimately get them to give you their properties for you to make nice cash flow from. But not only that as well, I'm actually gonna be going through live landlord phone calls I've actually had myself, where I recorded myself on the phone to these landlords and actually pitching them, this model right here, so that you're actually able to see for yourself how it's done and how I personally overcome objections and handle myself in certain situations that landlords put me in to be able to ultimately get them over the line. Now, before that, we need to understand the different landlord types there are out there. Now, I spoke about this briefly in the previous training video, but I'm actually gonna go a lot more in depth in this training right here with the different types of landlord profiles. So there's 4 main types of landlords. You got the accidental landlord, you got the portfolio landlord, you got the burnt out landlord, and you also have the professional landlord as well. Now, let's go through this one by one and start off with the accidental landlord. And I mean, look, the name pretty much says it itself. These are guys that end up being landlords by accident. Usually it's because, they've inherited a property, or I'm going to be real, that's usually why they're landlords. So because of that, they don't really have an understanding of, the work, the responsibilities that actually comes with being a landlord themselves. And I'm going to be honest with you, a lot of these guys hate it. They hate the work, they hate the responsibility, and they don't really want to be dealing with any of it. They don't want to be dealing with tenants, they don't want to be dealing with maintenance issues, and they just want to be left alone. And because of that, this model right here can be a perfect fit for them, because the way we're going to approach it when we identify someone as an accidental landlord is, look, Mr. Landlord, with us, the thing you need to understand is that we're going to be taking all the hassle away from you. We're going to be managing your property for you. We're going to be taking care of maintenance. We're going to be deep cleaning the property on a regular basis. We're going to be managing the guests that are inside that property as well. And at the same time, we're also going to be guaranteeing you the rent on a long-term basis. So the part that you have to emphasize with this specific landlord right here is the hassle-free part. Because, of course, with these different landlords I'm going to be taking you through, they all have, of course, different profiles, different motivations, and different pain points. So there has to be different things that you emphasize to each of these landlords to really get their attention and to actually speak their language. And the language that you want to be speaking to this specific landlord, the accidental landlord, is the language of hassle-free, is the language of zero headaches on your part. because we're going to be taking care of everything on your behalf. You don't have to worry about nothing. You will not get a phone call from us. And this is a phone call letting us know that, or letting you know that we're sending your money. So it's very, very important that you actually understand the pain points of these guys and how to best approach it as well. So you have the accidental landlord. But now we move on to the portfolio landlord. Now, what a portfolio landlord is a landlord that owns multiple properties, typically 3 or more. Now, don't get me wrong, with these guys as well, they're also looking for that hassle-free life as well. But at the same time, they are property investors that are actively growing their property portfolio and taking on more and more properties. So with these guys, they're already sitting at a certain level and they're already of a certain status. So they don't really have time to be, the tedious, the menial stuff when it comes to managing properties. They just don't have time for that. And of course, they want to maximize the profits they're making from their investment properties as well. But the problem is, if they give it to an estate agent, which is typically what a lot of them do, that estate agent is going to be charging them a commission. Sometimes it's a 10% commission, 20%, it's a lot. And it definitely adds up when, an estate agent is managing multiple or many of your properties. So now how we can really get the attention of these portfolio landlords to get them on board with this and let's actually get them to like the idea of a rent to rent is by highlighting the hassle-freeness of doing this and also highlighting just how much money they'll be saving with working with us. For example, let's say there's a portfolio landlord that owns 10 properties and let's say that landlord gives that property to an estate agent. Let's say overall, each of those properties make £2,000 a month. So that's £20,000 a month that those 10 properties are making in total. Now, let's say the landlord was to give it to an estate agent, and let's say that estate agent charges 15% commission on a monthly basis. That would mean that the landlord would be paying that estate agent £3,000 per month for that estate agent to manage all 10 of that landlord's properties. However, with us now, we're not going to be charging him a commission. Like, we don't need to do that because we make our money from running our properties as rent-to-rent service accommodation, as Airbnbs. So that's a massive selling point to these types of landlords because in that situation, in that scenario, the landlord is saving £3,000 a month. And that's about £36,000 a year. Like that sort of money is no joke. And that landlord is saving that just by simply working with us. But not only that as well, if a landlord has got 10 properties, he's obviously going to be letting those 10 properties out to 10 different tenants. Of course, it makes sense. However, with us, he only has one tenant. He don't have 10 separate tenants for 10 of his properties. He only has one tenant for all of his 10 properties. I mean, come on. That makes his life so much easier because he's only dealing with one person, one entity, and it just makes it so much more hassle-free because there's less tenant problems to deal with, there's less headaches, and overall, it's just super ideal. So when you're approaching these landlords right here, these are the things that you want to highlight. You want to highlight just how much money they can save by working with yourself and also just how much of a hassle-free experience it will be by, again, them choosing to work with you. Then you've also got the burnt out landlord. Now, this landlord is a landlord that's just sick and tired of being a landlord. They've probably had super bad experiences with tenants, for example. I've met some landlords in the past where they've had nightmare tenants in their properties. They've trashed the place. They've not paid rent for like 6 months, 12 months, and the landlord had to take them to court. That landlord not only lost money on the rent, but also had to lose more money by taking those tenants to court as well. And for that reason, it just burns these guys out and they just don't want to do it anymore. These guys are ideal. They are super perfect for this sort of business model right here. And we can literally become the perfect tenant. Now, the approach that we want to take with these guys, remember, these are guys that are sick and tired. They're fed up with dealing with tenants. They've lost a lot of money and they've had such bad experiences with being landlords and actually dealing with normal tenants. Now, the beauty about our model, the rent-to-rent model, is that with us, we're not going to be getting in tenants that live in the property. No. Remember, if we're running our properties as an Airbnb, the people that are staying in there, they're not tenants. Tenants are people that live in the property for 6 months or more. That's what a tenant is. But with the people we're getting in there, they're not tenants, they're guests. It's basically a very similar thing if you were to book a hotel for yourself. If you were to book a hotel for yourself for 1 night, 2 nights, whatever the case may be, you are a guest in that hotel. You're not a tenant in that hotel. So why am I saying that? The reason why I'm saying that is because tenants have so many rights. Like a tenant can literally not pay rent for 6 months, 7 months, or even 12 months, and the landlord can't kick them out unless he goes through the right procedures, the court proceedings, whatever the case may be. And that itself takes ages. So the tenant literally has all the rights in the world and the landlord can't do nothing about it. However, with guests now, guests don't have those same rights. If a guest is messing about, breaking the rules and just, doing whatever, you can literally kick them out within an instant. So that's the part right there that you want to be selling to these specific landlords. The fact that, hey, look, Mr. Landlord, I understand that you've had bad experiences with dealing with tenants in the past. However, the people that we are putting in the properties, they're not tenants. So even if they wanted to stay there and not leave, they can't do that because we'll just kick them out. Like we would call a security team to have them removed. Similar to if I try to book a hotel, in the Premier Inn and I booked it for one night and then after my first night, I'm saying, no, I'm not leaving. Like it's not going to be an issue for them to have me removed real quick. So this is the part right here that you want to be emphasizing to a burnt out landlord. And it's very, very important. And of course, it's going to be a hassle-free experience for them as well because they're not going to be managing everything. We're going to be doing everything for them and we're going to be guaranteeing them the rent on a long-term basis. And then last but not least, you have the professional landlord. Now, with this landlord, you have to take a slightly different approach with this landlord right here compared to the other ones. Now, with a professional landlord, they understand, the business and the ins and outs that's involved with actually being a landlord, and they are okay with that. And honestly, the main thing that they look at is the moolah. It's the money, it's the profits. That's the main thing that gets these guys' attention. And you know how before I spoke to you about, the burnt out landlord and how they would have had bad experiences with tenants, and that would have been, a pain point that we could target? With a lot of professional landlords, I'm going to be honest with you, a lot of the times, or in most cases, they haven't really had that much bad experiences with tenants. Because remember, they're professional landlords, so they know what they're doing. They take the tenants through heavy vetting process. So, it minimizes the risks of them actually getting bad tenants in their properties. So in that scenario, it's going to be a bit difficult for us to be like, look, you want to be a bit careful in case the next tenant you get is a bad tenant because they don't have that experience. So instead, what you want to be emphasizing is the amount of money that they'll be making with yourself and how that will be more compared to the money they'll be making with letting it out to a normal tenant. First of all, you're going to be taking care of minor maintenance. So that's not going to be coming out of their pocket, the landlord's pocket, it's going to be coming out of your pocket. But not only that as well, if the deal actually makes sense and the numbers allow it, there could be room for you to potentially bump up the rent a little bit. So let's say the rent, for example, is £1,500. Again, if the numbers allow it, this is very important. Perhaps you could bump it up by £100, £200. I mean, that's £100 to £200 more than they'll be getting with normal tenants, if that makes sense. So that would be a very good approach to take with this type of landlord right here. But also emphasizing the fact that this specific model right here will make things completely hassle-free for them. They don't have to do anything. You'll be doing everything on their behalf. This right here, this part is not the main selling point for them, but it's a little add-on, it's a little extra. So now that I've taken you through that, we're about to enter the saucy territory. Now the saucy territory involves me actually showing you, me approaching a landlord and having a conversation with him and actually having a discussion where I'm actually pitching the idea of a rent-to-rent to him. Now the first one I'm going to be taking you through is of a landlord that both of us had a mutual friend of. So a friend of mine actually introduced me to this landlord and, put in a word for me. And this landlord actually had quite a few properties to rent in a certain area. So my friend put me in touch with this landlord and we arranged to essentially meet up at his property to have a good chat about, what we can do to help him. And to be fair, because my friend was also his good friend as well, and he was a pretty chilled out landlord too, he actually did allow us to, bring our cameras and actually shoot, whilst we're at the viewing with him. And whilst we're at that viewing of that property, and I'm about to show you right now, the landlord was actually speaking to us about the difficulties and the challenges that he was facing with another tenant for literally a property next door that he also owned. Now that tenant was the council. He was actually letting that property out to the council for social housing so that they could, accommodate vulnerable people, whatever the case may be. But they were not making life easy for him because of the speed they were moving at. So let's take a look at this clip right now.
Oh yeah, I was going to just say, Walia, you were saying about some of the stuff that the social housing providers make you do. Like, I know kitchen was one of the things that you had a problem with next door, right?
Bro, yeah. But I mean, the reason why I would, was open to the conversation with you was obviously they've given me a guaranteed rent. Yeah, so it sounds fantastic on paper. I'm going to get it guaranteed. I just do the work to their spec, and then it's the money just rolls in, and that's it for 5 years. The reality is basically they took ages to sign off because they were just so pedantic. Now you've got to remember the people that work for these social housing providers. It's just a job for them. So I remember I was looking to get sign off. House is done. They've come in. They've not pressed the switch for the extractor fan, and they didn't sign it off saying the extractor fan wasn't working. So then I had to wait another 2 weeks for them to come back, and then they're like, oh, well, but the wires are a bit loose. Oh, you see cable tie them, can't sign it off. So it's just silly things like that just really ate into margin. Now, in that time, that property's empty. You know, that was mortgage payments, council tax, bills. So, you know, it was a real pain to get things signed off.
So based on what you've seen just now, first instant problem that we identified was the fact that his existing tenant, again, which was the council or the property next door, were moving extremely slow with getting things moving and actually taking on his property. And because they were moving extremely slow with actually taking on his property and actually paying him his rent, he had to still fork out money for paying his mortgage, paying the monthly bills. So he was pretty much losing money. Now, don't get me wrong, not everybody rents their properties to the council. I get that. But I'm telling you, the same process also applies with normal tenants as well. Like renting out to normal tenants can be quite slow as well. It depends when they're looking to move. Some tenants are not looking to move in straight away. They might be looking to move in, you know, a month later, 2 months later. And within that space of time, the landlord's going to still need to pay money for the mortgage and also the bills as well. But with us now, with people that are looking to do rent to rents, one of the biggest selling points that we can actually give to landlords is the fact that we can move fast. We can move quick, rapid speed. Literally, if we like the property, you know, if it ticks all of our boxes and the numbers make sense, we can take it on ASAP, we can get it set up and we can start paying you your rents ASAP. So this right here is a very nice selling point that's actually worked for myself in the past with a lot of landlords that, you know, I'd pitched this model to, the fact that we are looking to move very, very quickly. So now another concern that this landlord had was the fact that, of course, if we're going to be taking this property on and running it as a Airbnb, service accommodation, there's going to be different people coming in and out. So his concern was, you know, what if you get people that actually, you know, mess up the place, that mistreat the place and ultimately trash the place as well? Which, to be fair, is a valid concern. And a lot of landlords actually have that concern. So let's check it out right now to see how I was able to approach that.
But Yusuf, like, Liam, you can test this. One of my biggest worries why I want to have this conversation with you was you've got lots of different people coming and going, right? You said that earlier. How do we make sure that, like, they don't trash the place? Because that's going to be on me, essentially.
Of course. No, that is, to be fair, 100%, and it's a good question. So what we do, we make sure that anybody that comes in, first and foremost, we're understanding what the reason for their booking is. We want to make sure that, of course, they're booking for the right reasons. I think one red flag that we've noticed is that someone that's looking to book the place is based in the same area. It's like, why are you looking to book a place that you live in the same area in? Does that make sense? So typically that does raise some red flags, and typically it is because they're looking to have like a large gathering, sometimes even a party. So that's one red flag right there we've looked out for. There are quite a few, to be fair, but, you know, for us, I'm going to be honest with you, the last time we actually had guests come to our place and throw parties and just trash the place, I can't even remember the last time. Maybe when we were first starting out, many moons ago, but just because of the procedures we have in place, the systems, the vetting process we take people through, it's really just, you know, it's going to be very hard for them to slip through the cracks.
Yeah,
if that
and
makes
you
sense.
can hold their card and deposits, right?
Oh, 100%.
So, yeah,
100%. So we have their card details on file. We collect the deposit from them. We also make them sign terms and conditions, also contracts as well. So if they do try any funny business, we'll make sure that we charge that amount or a certain amount to their card. We make sure that we keep their deposit. And, you know, if it did get to an extreme level, I mean, we have all their information. We have their, for example, their ID on file. And if it's a case to where we need to, you know, take things further in a legal matter, then, you know, we'll do that. But we haven't had to do that as of yet because we've not really had that issue.
So from what you saw from that clip just now, you could see that I was really able to give that landlord assurance that, look, you know, the people that we're getting in our properties, we're taking them through a thorough vetting process to make sure that they're actually the right types of people that we accommodate. And I also even demonstrated my knowledge as well. Remember when I said, typically when someone lives in the same area and they're looking to book a property in the same area, that's an instant red flag. A lot of people don't know that. But by me sharing that with him, it allows him to see that, okay, this guy actually knows what he's talking about. So the fact that he could see that I knew what I was talking about gave him more confidence and more assurance as well. But on top of that as well, I was able to highlight the security measures that we have in place. We make the guests sign terms and conditions, making sure that they adhere to the house rules. We also collect a deposit from the guests as well. So if they try anything funny, if they damage anything, we'll just keep their deposit. We won't refund it to them. On top of that as well, with these same guests, we actually have their card details on file, you know, the cards that they actually use to pay for their stay at the property. So if certain damages were to be made, we'll just charge that back to their cards. And also, in the worst case scenario, if they do decide to, you know, be a little bit funny with it or be extreme, with the damages, then we'll take things further in a legal matter. So by me taking the landlord through all these different things that I just mentioned, the landlord can see that we've actually got the right process in place to ensure that we're getting things sorted out ASAP whenever they arise. And of course, we have all the right procedures in place to make sure that we're minimizing any problems that take place with the properties that we actually have. Also, remember, one of the key selling points that we're going to be putting forward to landlords is the fact that we're going to be offering them guaranteed rent. But for some landlords, it sounds a little bit too good to be true. And to be fair, they actually have concerns about, okay, is the rent actually guaranteed or is it not guaranteed? So have a listen to this landlord right here actually expressing that exact concern and how I was able to address it as well.
So what happens when, I know you say guaranteed, but is it guaranteed? Am I going to get a call one day and be like, oh, sorry, Wally, we didn't get enough bookings?
Well,
we can't pay you.
I get that. The thing is as well is that, of course, because, we're not just taking on this property and only making income from this property. Does that make sense? We've got income coming in from other properties, different areas. So it's just more of a case to where, okay, if we have a property that's underperforming, we will just allocate funds that are in different parts of the business to cover the rent for this specific property. So, if I was someone that was quite new, for example, just starting off, I could understand that concern. Does that make sense? But because, we are quite established, we've been in the game for a little while, it's not really a concern. If there is a couple of months to where maybe we're not getting enough bookings to essentially cover the rent, it's not really an issue for us to cover that rent.
Okay, so you'd seen that one of the concerns the landlord has was, hey, look, if you're not getting bookings for your property, how are you going to pay me my rent? Now, the response that I had was the fact that, look, we've got multiple properties, so it's not really a problem for us to pay you the rent because, we can just take funds from other properties and pay you that rent. Now, don't get me wrong, I understand that if you're starting out completely fresh, you can't really say that unless you're trying to, you're trying to, But it's still 100% doable as well, because when I first started off, I still gave them that assurance that, look, I will still guarantee you the rent. I've got income coming in. Okay, it may not be from other properties, but I have income coming in, and I'm able to show that to you. It's not a problem whatsoever. And regardless as to whether or not the property is filled, it's empty, you still be receiving guaranteed rent. And on top of that as well, you can actually say to them that, look, Mr. Landlord, with this area right here, we've done thorough due diligence, analysis and research, and we can see that this area right here actually has high demand for service accommodation, short-term rentals, Airbnbs, whatever the case may be. So because of that, we're extremely confident that we're not going to have an issue whatsoever guaranteeing you the rent. But in the worst case scenario, just to put your mind at ease, we will still pay you the rent regardless. And I'm telling you, if you're actually getting the right property in the right location and you're actually managing it correctly as well, getting it filled up is no problem whatsoever. Now, another thing that we can also put forward to landlords, and I actually mentioned this a few times as well previously in this video, is the fact that we are actually going to be covering the maintenance costs or the minor maintenance costs. So what that means is if something goes wrong with the property itself, if the locks needs fixing or, the sink is blocked or whatever the case may be. Something that needs to be fixed in the property. If it's minor, we can take care of that. But if it's major, we can't take care of that. The landlord has to take care of that. So now let's take a look at when the landlord actually puts forward that question to me in relation to maintenance.
I guess, the hesitancy is I just want to make sure that it's guaranteed, and you will absolutely make sure that money's coming. I know you've got other properties, and so you said that you can overcome that by other means.
Yeah.
The other bit was around you said about maintenance. I just need a bit more clarity on what actually I'm responsible for and what you're going to be. So I get the boiler, and if they smash the walls up, is that going to be on you? Is that on me?
Yeah. So if they smash the walls up, of course that will be on us because that's our problem. So anything essentially, think about it like this. So we are your tenants. So of course anything minor or anything that was caused because of us, we will take care of it. Anything that's major and out of our control, if the roof comes off, if the boiler stops working, if the water stops running, then of course you as a landlord will need to of course come and cater to that, of course. But outside of anything extreme and things that are not our fault, we would 100% be catering to that. If someone smashed through the walls, if someone damaged the furniture, teared up the carpets, just anything aesthetic to the property that's out of place, we would 100% take care of that because we have to. Because if we're going to be getting new people in each time, they're not going to accept that. They're not going to tolerate that.
got it.
Does that make sense? So it's going to be bad business for us. We're not going to be making the money we want to make.
So you've seen from that clip I just showed you right there that I really drove the point home with highlighting to the landlord that it's so important for us to be maintaining the property to a high standard. It's important for us to be catering to the minor maintenance, or let's say, for example, a guest, they actually damage the property as well. That's our fault. That's not the landlord's fault. So we need to actually cover that expense as well. And what will also give landlords that extra assurance as well is by you highlighting the fact that you have to do that. So in that clip right there, I was saying to the landlord, look, if we don't maintain the property to a high standard and, cater to all the repairs that need to be done, guests are not going to be happy. They're not going to be happy. They're not going to want to book our properties, which means that we're not going to be making any money. So that means that it's very crucial for us to be maintaining your property to a very high standard. And I really highlight that part. And a lot of landlords do like to hear that. And it does put their minds at ease, knowing the fact that, you will be taking care of their property. Now, eventually, we did actually get to the point where we closed the deal and the landlord actually agreed, but not before we negotiated the rent that was going to be paid on that property. So let's check that part out.
Obviously, as you know, my baseline was $2,000 and I've got a new baseline of $3,000 because that's what I've been offered as a guaranteed rent. Is that something you can stretch to?
Potentially. What I would say, Willie, let me give me a little bit. Give me till later on today. I'm gonna do some number crunching, and if it's genuinely doable, if the numbers allow us to do it, honestly, it won't be no problem. If the numbers allow it, it wouldn't be a problem for us to give you a little bit more. But in the worst case scenario, if the numbers don't allow it and we're quite stretched, even if it's the case where potentially we can offer you £100 more, is that something that you would consider?
Yeah. Shake your hand on that one.
Appreciate that, man.
So from that clip right there, you could see that I highlighted the fact that, look, I'm more than happy to pay you the rent you're asking for. However, we need to double check if the numbers allow it. If the numbers don't allow it, it's going to be very tricky for us. However, if the numbers allow it, we'll be more than happy to do that. And what I mean by do the numbers allow it is simply, hey, Mr. Landlord, if we're paying you £3,000 per month for your rent, are we going to be able to make any good money from this property? So that's all I simply meant. And it's so important that you're making sure that you're not overpaying the rent, for taking on these properties. And I've spoken to so many people in the past that have done exactly that. They were super eager to get their first deal. And because of that, they ended up overpaying on the rent. And after they've taken the property on, it's a struggle for them to make, any decent amount of money. And they regret. A lot of them honestly end up regretting it. Some to the point where they're not making any money, and some to the point where they're even taking a loss. And the simple reason for that was because they didn't have a good understanding of how to best negotiate with these landlords. They didn't have a good understanding of how to carry out the correct research, the correct analysis in an area to see realistically how much money they could make if they actually took that property on and ran it as a service accommodation. They didn't have any of that understanding. They just had an opportunity presented to them. They were very eager. They took that property on and, it was a bad decision. And trust me, a lot of people fall victim to this, especially the people that don't have the most amount of knowledge, the people that are trying to do this themselves, because you don't know what you don't know. But remember, it's so important that when you are approaching these landlords, you're able to identify the type of landlord they are. And I'm gonna be so honest with you, there's a lot of landlords out there that this just wouldn't work for. Like the rent to rent model wouldn't be a good fit for those landlords at all. And to be fair, you have to be able to identify that quickly so that you're not wasting too much time trying to convince someone that's just not going to be convinced. So let me give you some examples right now of landlords that typically this sort of model doesn't work for. Your first type of landlord is a landlord that's a first-time landlord. And the reason why, typically speaking, this model doesn't work well for first-time landlords is because a lot of the times these landlords they're so emotionally attached to that property. They've only got one property. It's their baby, they've got a sentimental attachment to it. So because of that, this model right here, the fact that there's going to be different people coming in and out, they're not going to know who's going to be in there, etc., it just rubs them off the wrong way. So from my experience, most of the times with these guys, it's not even worth it. You also have the property flippers. Now, these guys are landlords, for example, that bought the property, but then they want to eventually flip it to sell it on for a profit. And yeah, for you, it's gonna be quite hard for you to try and make that work, because when you're renting the property from a landlord, you want to do so for quite a long period. Remember I said before, the typical minimum duration is about 3 years. And the reason why 3 years is a sweet spot is because you're going to invest money into that deal. Let's say, for example, you invest £6,000 or £7,000 into that deal. Well, it's going to take you time for you to make your money back from that specific deal. Let's say it's making you £900 per month and you invest £7,000 into that deal. Well, that means, 8 months or so, you're going to be making your money fully back. And the rest of the months after that, it's going to be pure profit. But let's say you only renting the property, or you're only renting the property from the landlord for only 12 months. So that means you're going to put in all that work. You're going to do go through all of that to only make money for 4 months, and then you have to give the property back. It's just not worth it. And the thing with these property flippers is that they're not really looking for people to rent their properties long term. They may look for someone to rent their properties for 6 months, maybe 12 months, until they're able to get the right things in place to be able to sell that property on afterwards. I've experienced a few of those landlords, and typically this sort of model doesn't work for them. You also have the controlling landlords. And these are landlords that typically live nearby their properties. And the reason for that is very simple. They want to control their properties. You know, they want to know what's going on, who's in the properties. They want to be managing everything. They want to be very hands-on. Yeah, I've dealt with these landlords, trust me, and they are not this don't work for them because they're just too controlling and they'll just give you so much more headache than it's actually worth as well. Now, how you can actually go about identifying what type of landlord that you're actually dealing with is very simple. It's just by asking the right types of questions. For example, Mr. Landlord, how many properties do you own? Is this your only property, or do you actually have other properties that you actually own? You know, if he owns multiple properties, that tells you that he's a portfolio landlord. If he owns multiple properties in the same area that he actually lives in, okay, he lives pretty close to all of his properties. Maybe he likes being hands-on with them. Maybe you also want to ask them as well, have you ever considered a guaranteed rent service before? Some of them may have not thought about it, or some of them may have thought about it and may have been pitched at, but they just outright refused it. And also, you want to be paying attention to any emotional language that the landlord is using. For example, if the landlord was telling me that, oh, you know, this property right here is my baby, you know, this was my only property and I want to make sure I only get the right tenant in there, the perfect tenant in there. Yeah, I'm going to be honest with you, that's a problem. It's not a problem for them, it's a problem for you anyways, someone that's looking to do rent to rents. However, if you have a landlord that's quite professional, if you have a landlord that, you know, is looking for that hassle-free experience, maybe they've had bad experiences with tenants in the past, or maybe, you know, they just want to make more money from their properties. Those types of landlords are good fits. Now, I did touch on this before, but it's so important that you're able to, you know, find out what these landlords' motivations are and also what their pain points are as well. And the reason why that's so important is because you can take that and use that as ammunition for you to be able to position this, you know, agreement, this rent-to-rent agreement as the perfect fit for the landlord. And how can we go about actually finding out what their motivations and what their pain points are? Again, we just simply ask the right questions. So Mr. Landlord, if it's okay to ask, what's been the worst tenant experience you've experienced so far? Or maybe I'm asking, Mr. Landlord, by the way, how long has your property actually been empty for? And why has it actually been empty for so long? You see, by me asking these types of questions, I'm giving the landlord an opportunity to express the struggles, the headaches, you know, and the unpleasant experiences that he's actually going through or that he may have gone through with having that property. And again, this is something you can definitely use to your advantage as well. Maybe we don't know, but the amount of time and effort that he's putting forward to managing these properties, it's just taking up too much of his time. It takes time away from, you know, spending time doing the things that he wants to be doing. Maybe he wants to spend time with his family, for example. He wants to spend more time playing golf or whatever the case may be. But he can't do that because he's managing these properties. So maybe that's another thing that we want to ask them as well. You know, Mr. Landlord, if it's okay to ask, like, how much time are you actually spending on managing this property or managing these properties that you actually have? Maybe he's not spending that much time, which, okay, cool, no problem. But maybe he's spending a lot of time. Again, all of these things, you're asking these questions to see what the landlord says, you know, for you to be able to use as ammunition. But also another very important question that you can ask the landlord as well, especially if he's not really feeling the idea of a rent to rent. And this is something that I like to do a lot as well. I just simply like to ask the question, okay, Mr. Landlord, if it's okay to ask, what actually pushed you off about this specific model right here, this specific model that I'm actually pitching to you? So if a landlord says no to me originally, if I pitch him this model and I ask him that question, in most cases, especially if I'm asking it in such a nice way, they're going to let me know why they don't want to do this. Whether that's because they don't know who's going to be in the property, whether that's because they don't know how it works, whether that's because that whole idea about different people coming in and out of their properties just makes them feel uneasy, etc., etc. Whatever the reason that puts them off, when they tell me that, I now have an opportunity to be able to overcome that objection. But again, that's only possible when you actually ask the right types of questions. And honestly, there's been so many times in the past where I've actually spoken to landlords, whether that's over the phone, in person, and I've actually pitched them the idea of doing rent to rent with their properties. And they flat out told me, no, we're not interested. And then by me simply asking, okay, what about this puts you off? Like, why are you not interested? And because now they've told me the reason why they're not interested, I now know what their objection is. So now that gives me the opportunity to overcome those objections. And I'm telling you, there's been so many times when the landlord initially started off saying no, and then I was able to get them to the point where they eventually agreed. And trust me, a lot of landlords are like this. I would even argue that most landlords are like this. It just comes down to the ability, the knowledge that you have to be able to, effectively overcome any objections, any concerns that the landlords may have with this specific model right here. And the thing is as well, when you're pitching landlords this model as well, it can go in so many different directions. Like they can take it in multiple different directions. And because of that, you have to be fully prepared with being able to overcome whatever they're throwing your way. And that simply comes with you having the right knowledge, the right know-how, and the right understanding as well. And I'm gonna be so honest with you, most people actually struggle with this part. This part right here is actually the hardest part for most people. It's because they just don't know how to do that. So now I'm gonna walk you through another landlord conversation or a landlord call that I actually had where I was actually pitching them the idea of a rent to rent. Now you'll see in a sec that the landlord was throwing a whole lot of objections my way and she weren't easy, I can't lie. But you'll also see how I was able to take some of the concerns that she had, and to be fair, even some of the experiences that she shared with me, and use that to my advantage and use that as ammunition when I'm actually pitching her this specific model right here. So right now, let's actually check out a clip from that call.
I've had trouble with tenants in the past, really, really big problems with tenants. So for that reason, I've always been, or since I had those problems, I've been very, very careful in selecting people as much as you can be, but I have been very careful. I'm just a bit concerned that if I hand that over to you, I've got no idea who's going in there.
No, I completely understand. I appreciate you sharing that with me, by the way. However, what I will say, just going back to what I mentioned before, we wouldn't be looking to just put anybody in there. That's not our intentions at all. We are actually quite selective with the types of people that we look to put up in our accommodation. Going back to what I said before about the, people coming from these different corporations, these different businesses, essentially the types of people that, most landlords and estate agents would be looking to accommodate. But the only difference is with us, they would be staying in a property for a shorter period. We're talking perhaps a month, 2 months, sometimes 3, sometimes longer, but also at times it can be less as well. So this would be our intention with the types of people we would be looking to mainly get in there. So you can see from the jump, big concern this landlord has was the fact that she's not going to know who's going to be inside the property. And you would have also seen that she also shared that she had bad experiences with past tenants as well. And for that reason alone, it makes it even more uneasy not knowing who's going to be in the property. But now how I was able to respond to that was, look, we're not just going to be putting anyone in there. We're actually quite selective with the types of people that we're going to be accommodating in the property. And the thing is, we have to really drive this point home to landlords, because if we get the wrong types of people in that property, they're going to be causing disturbance to the neighbors, and they're going to be pissing people off, and that's going to cause so much headache and so much drama for yourself, for the neighbors, potentially the building managers as well. And it's just gonna, you don't want that to happen. It's not going to be good for you, or your business. So we need to make sure that we're doing everything in our power to not make that happen. And we really need to make the landlords see and understand that as well. And not only that as well, you would have seen that I did mention that, the types of people we're looking to cater for are, business travelers, people that are coming to the area for work trips and business. The reason why I said that was because the area that specific property was in actually did have a pretty high demand for people that are, looking to book properties there, that are traveling for business, that are working for different corporations, etc., etc. So that was the reason why, I said that to her. But trust me, this is a concern right here that a lot of landlords have. So it's important that you're ensuring that you're able to overcome this the correct way. But I'm going to be honest with you, despite me saying what I said, this landlord was still insistent on knowing who's going to be in the property. She did not let up on that. So let's take a look at that right now.
Even if obviously I had nothing to do with getting the tenants, would you keep me informed as to who was actually in the property?
It's going to be hard. It's going to be tricky. And the reason for that is because it genuinely would be different people that would be in and out. So I'm guessing by you saying that, you mean you want the details of the person staying in the property, right?
Well, not necessarily full details, but at least the name of whoever's in my property. It's my property, and at the end of the day, I'm responsible for what happens in that property, even though you are essentially a middleman between me and a tenant. If anything disastrous goes wrong in that building, then I'm going to ultimately be responsible. So I kind of feel like I would need to know who was there at least, at any one time. Not that I would interfere with that necessarily, but just to know, what was going on. And if, for instance, when you do this maintenance that you say, or inspections or whatever it is you do, would you let me know that you had done those things?
Of course. So when it comes to the inspections, we can 100% keep you informed about when we're carrying it out, when we're scheduling it, all these different things. Now, the problem when it comes to, letting you know and informing you about the peoples that are not the types of people, the details of the people that are staying there, their names, who they are, etc., is, we have to be careful when it comes to treading on, GDPR rules. And I understand it's your property, 100%, and I completely get where you're coming from. But where, they are essentially doing business with us, we have an obligation to keep their, information private, if that makes sense. That's not me coming up with that rule. That's essentially a rule enforced by, the UK government and also across Europe as well. So it genuinely would be tricky for me to be able to, release the details of the types of people that would be looking to stay in there.
So you can see that I used a little bit of a legal lingo just there. I mentioned GDPR, which, to keep it very simple, is basically a rule that means you have to protect your customers' data and information. And of course, the guests that are booking the properties, they are customers, if you will. They're not the landlord's customers. So obviously we have an obligation to keep the information of the guests confidential, of course. Now, look, I get that the landlord owns the property and, it makes sense that it's their property and they should know who's going to be staying inside. But for this specific business model right here, that rule, the GDPR rule, does actually apply. But not only that as well, even minusing the GDPR thing, even like logistically, for you to be able to, let the landlord know every single person that's staying in the property, like logistically, it's a nightmare. I'm going to be honest with you, because you're going to have a lot of people coming in and out of the property. And think about, okay, that's just one property, but think about if you had to do that for 10, 20, 30 properties, like it just would be impossible. So you really have to, drive that point home as well, that logistically, it's just not going to make sense for us to be able to do it because it's just going to be too much work. But nonetheless, I can assure you, Mr. Landlord, or Mrs. Landlord, people we're getting in the property are going to be people that are, good, upstanding people. They're not going to be bad people. And of course, whenever they want to as well, they can come by, they can inspect the property, they can make sure that they're feeling at ease, that their property is being taken care of. That is not a problem whatsoever. Now, another major important thing that you have to keep in mind when you're looking to take on rent-to-rent deals are the neighbors. And this is actually something that most people don't even think about. But the neighbors are actually very, very important, because if they're bad neighbors, and they hate you and they hate your business model, then they're gonna give you a lot of headaches. But if they're good neighbors, then of course that will go a long way for you. Or if they're neighbors that just don't care, then that's also a good thing as well. But with this specific landlord now, she actually did bring up the neighbors in the phone conversation I had with her. So let's take a look at that.
The other thing is, I mentioned to you about the tenants I had a lot of trouble with before. At that time, they really, really upset the neighbours who were in the same block there, Clapham Junction property, and I couldn't go through that again. I mean, this is something that worries me. Without me actually physically approving the people, I sort of gave my promise to those other neighbours that we would never have any situation like that again.
Of course.
So, yeah, do you understand what I mean?
I completely understand what you're saying. I completely get where you're coming from. What I would say, we, of course, if we have an agreement and, we're able to take things further, me personally, I would be more than happy myself to, go to the neighbors, to introduce myself, to have a good chat with them, to build a relationship with them. And of course, if there are any issues whatsoever with them, or not with them, sorry, if they're having any issues or experiencing any difficulties with anyone that's staying in there, which is highly unlikely, but in the worst case scenario, if that was the case, they can contact us directly and we would be dealing with it immediately, like there and then on the spot. We don't usually come across issues like that, but if we have, for example, I don't know, the guest was playing music a bit too loud and they were annoying the neighbors a bit, I mean, we would get on that immediately, if that makes sense.
Yeah, actually, that's quite reassuring because, as I say, I did promise them after the last nightmare that we all went through together, the neighbours and me, with those tenants, that we, that I promised them that I would make sure it never happened again, which is why I was being so selective with my tenants.
So you can see from that clip right there, the landlord shared that the neighbours had very bad experiences with the previous tenant that was staying in that property, and because of that, they're a little bit sensitive, to say the least. So now for me, I've told the landlord that I'm going to go out my way to go to the neighbours, introduce myself, build a relationship with them, and actually ensure that we always keep on friendly terms. And we're doing everything on our part to make sure that they're not disturbed and the people that are going to be staying in our properties, don't annoy them. And trust me, this part right here works wonders. It's so important that you're staying on good terms with your neighbors and you actually have your neighbors on your side as opposed to working against you as well, because there's actually been people that have lost deals because of that. And when I say neighbors, this is mainly like neighbors in apartment buildings or blocks of flats, not really, houses, because that's a little bit different, of course. Now, remember what I said to you before when I was talking about the different landlord profiles? I was saying one of the benefits about this business model right here is the fact that because we have guests staying on our properties and not tenants, they don't have the same rights. And because of that, if they misbehave for whatever reason, we can get them out there very quickly. Whereas with tenants, you can't do that. You have to take them through court. It takes a very, very long time, etc., etc. So with this landlord right here, she actually does put forward that concern to me, and you'll see what I say.
If there is any problem with the people, how is it easy for you to get them out of there? Because as you know yourself, it's not that easy to evict people as a landlord. It can be extremely difficult.
Of course, no, that's a brilliant question you asked. What I will say is extremely easy for us to remove these people. Of course, not remove them physically, but have them removed. What I mean by that is the reason for that is because with these individuals that are staying in there, they're essentially not tenants, if that makes sense. They're more guests of the property. Think about
like hotel guests or something like that.
That's a perfect comparison. So now if I were to go to a hotel, Amanda, and I stay there for 5 nights, and then I told them I'm not leaving after the 5th night, I don't think it would be hard for them to have me removed, there and then,
So yeah, that's just something that you want to make sure that you're also sharing with these landlords as well, because that is actually a big beauty behind it as well. And, for her, of course, she didn't know that. And a lot of landlords don't know that. So it's important that we obviously educate them on that as well. And I'm telling you, for the right landlords, that thing alone right there can be an absolute game changer for them, especially landlords that have had bad experiences with, tenants in the past, like this landlord, for example. So honestly, so far, things are looking good. The boxes are being ticked and it's looking like we're going to strike up a deal with this landlord. However, there was just one problem, of course. That problem was with this landlord, like afterwards, she actually asked or requested for myself to pay 12 months rent up front in advance. And that's crazy. That is literally insane. If I'm not mistaken, that would have been around 30 to 35 grand I would have to pay up front in rent. And to be fair, this is something that's not that uncommon. Certain landlords do try this, but let's see how it went down with this specific one.
Yeah, I was just thinking though, the tenants that have just left, they were Chinese interns actually in one of the big banks. And they paid me 12 months in advance from China actually before they came. So I'm just wondering what your sort of terms would be, because really, that doesn't seem unreasonable to me, at least.
To pay 12 months up front.
Yeah.
Okay, that would be that would be quite. I just worked it out. It works out just a little under £35,000 to pay up front. That would be quite a bit, if I'm being honest with you, Amanda. Look, we'd be happy to pay, on a monthly basis. That wouldn't be a problem for us whatsoever, to be able to guarantee you that on a monthly, ongoing agreement throughout that whole duration, 3 years. It could be longer if you agree to it. We'd definitely be happy to do that. But I think it would be a bit tricky on our part to pay you 12 months up front.
Now look, before I continue the rest of that clip, I just need to put a disclaimer out there. I don't know why, but I nearly started busting up and dying. I honestly don't know why. I think it was the way this landlord was coming across, how she was saying what she was saying. I don't know why, but I just wanted to give you that heads up as well, just so you know.
Well, see, from my point of view, those Chinese students actually were paid for by China, but they'd finished university in this country, and then they were going to do internships at the banks. And where those two came from, there are plenty more who will be graduating, later in September or July, August of this year, and they will easily give me 12 months in advance. So I don't really see why I should settle for less.
I see what you're saying. I mean, I get where you're coming from. I definitely get it. If I was in your shoes, I may have similar thoughts as well. But look, perhaps there's something we can do to, make up for the fact that you're not getting a lump sum up front. Perhaps even if it means potentially, increasing the monthly rent by a bit, just to make up for that fact. So, over the long period, you're of course going to be making more money from your rental property. What do you think about that?
I don't know. You see, from my side, I think this is something I've never done before, and you really need to be doing something to reassure me. I mean, you've told me you're going to keep the property rented out to people, etc. With all these people that you've got who are coming to London and need places to stay. So basically, I suppose what I'm saying is put your money where your mouth is. If you know you're going to fill the property all the time, then you surely can pay me what I want 12 months in advance.
No, of course. I mean, look, we 100%, don't get me wrong, we could definitely do that. That's not a problem whatsoever. But the thing is, we're actually looking to take on quite a lot of properties in that area, and also the surrounding areas as well. So just simply from a logistics point of view, it wouldn't make the most amount of sense on our part to tie up all of that money into one property when we could use that to take on multiple properties. I know that's not your problem, 100%, that's our problem. I completely agree with that, but that's why I was saying, potentially if we could, the monthly rent right now is £2,900. We'd be happy to have that increased. So from day one, you're getting above market rent, and you're not getting 12 months up front, but at the same time 12 months later you'd be making a lot more compared to what you was making when.
So what sort of price are you thinking? What price are you thinking of increasing it to, the rent?
I literally don't know why I nearly died at that last second. I nearly lost my composure, but we held it down. We were able to hold it down, to be fair. But you could see that, that landlord was being very, very resistant. Like, she was very insistent on having 12 months rent being paid up front. But the thing is, that doesn't make no sense for us, because like that amount of money she's asking for, which was just a little under £35,000 to be paid, we could be taking on, 3 deals, maybe 4 more deals with that same money that she's asking for. So honestly, it makes no sense whatsoever doing that. I would never do that. And I wouldn't recommend you doing that either. But you could see in that video, I was able to kind of, make up for it by, positioning it in the way that I said to her, look, okay, we're not able to do this, but however, to make up for it, we'd be more than happy to, talk about or look at increasing the rent for you. Which, of course, from what you saw, she was very resistant to it at first, but, eventually she kind of opened up a little bit. Now, I mentioned this before, I'll mention it again. It's so important that you are only doing that if the numbers allow it. Like, I would never pay more rent or increase rent if I feel like the numbers don't allow it, or if the deal just will not end up making me the money that I would like for it to make me. But I'm gonna be honest with you, that specific phone call I had with that landlord, I can't say that I've had many phone calls like that. And, it goes back to what I said before about how when you're speaking to these landlords, it can literally go in whichever direction. And honestly, if you are not able to react the correct way, to approach it the correct way and say the correct things, you've lost the deal. I've seen this with so many people. Even like, for example, when we have students, for example, one of our students, Michael Apong, when he first started off with this business right here, like, I remember there was these landlords and these deals that he was trying to close, but because he was still super early on, he was actually, losing these deals because he was saying the wrong things. He wasn't able to overcome the right objections the right way. And he was just stumbling. And of course, that's to be expected with someone that's never done this before. But he was able to get this business to the point where it was generating him, or it is generating him, £6,500 in pure profit each and every month. But it came down to the fact that he was really able to dial in his approach with landlords and, ensure that he was prepped for all the scenarios that came with actually conversating with these landlords and all the different directions, it could go down. And trust me, when you've not been there, when you've not done that, it's very, very hard to pick these things up. But obviously with Michael, who was working together with us, we was working closely with him, and we were able to get him to that level real nice and real easy. And there's also, of course, our other student, Saeed, as well. But anyways, even with himself, his approach to these landlords and sometimes these estate agents was very rusty. Like, he just didn't know, how to go about it the best way, even though he actually did have experience in property elsewhere as well. We showed him the ropes, we showed him what's what. 6 months into it, he was able to secure, I believe it was 5 deals that would be generating him £5,000 per month in pure profit. I actually have an interview with him on my YouTube channel as well. Now, there are a few key things that you need to keep in mind when it actually comes to you conversating with landlords to try and, bag the deal from them. Really and truly, you have 2 main jobs when you are conversating with them. And that's to get them to build trust with you and for you to also build your credibility with them as well. Because if there's no trust, they're not going to give you the property. And if they think that you're someone that's not credible and doesn't know what they're doing, they're not going to give you the property. And this part is so important. And I'm going to be honest with you, it's everything at the start. And most of these landlords out here are super skeptical of rent to rents and they don't really know too much about it. So it's so important that we're able to dial this in and get this right from the very start. And honestly, there's a few things that you can actually go about doing and saying to be able to build that trust and credibility with them. First things first, you have to make sure that you're getting yourself set up the correct way. Get your limited company set up, make sure that you're fully compliant, you have the right insurances in place, you actually have a website in place as well. These things will help you and will work in your favor. Not only that as well, but you actually want to highlight and emphasize that the people that you will be putting in the property, the people that will be booking the property, these are not going to be any Tom, Dick and Harry. You won't allow that. You're only going to focus on getting high quality guests in there that are going to treat the property with care and they're not going to cause any trouble basically. But not only that as well, you definitely want to go about tailoring your pitch to the right landlord profile. The mistake or the big mistake a lot of people make is that they'll use the same type of approach with every single landlord. It doesn't matter what type of landlord profile they are. And because of that, they just never get the deal. Like, they always fall flat on their face. That is the worst way to do it. You have to understand what type of landlord you're dealing with, and then you have to tailor your approach to that specific landlord and highlight the different benefits based on what you feel like would appeal to that specific landlord. Now, when it actually comes to finding landlords to actually, pitch them this idea in the first place, there's a few different platforms that you can actually take a look at online. There's a platform called Open Rent, which is a pretty good platform to go directly to landlords that have properties to rent. You also have Gumtree as well, which isn't as good as Open Rent, but it's something that you can definitely explore and is definitely a platform that some landlords do use as well. The good thing about Gumtree is that at times they actually do leave their numbers for you to contact them straight away. Whereas with Open Rent, you always have to message them. You also have Spare Room as well, which isn't the best, but it can work potentially, if you go about it the right way. That's actually a platform where people are listing rooms to rent rather than whole properties. But you can go on there and, look for a property where all the rooms are available to be rented. And then you can approach the landlord to see if they'd be open to renting the whole property out to you. You've also got Facebook as well, potentially Facebook Marketplace. That could be potential for you to find properties for yourself. I definitely wouldn't say that's the best. There's a lot of scammers on there as well, so you just need to be careful. But occasionally you can find some pretty decent opportunities on there. Also, potentially you go into networking events, specifically property networking events, for you to be able to connect with potential landlords, potential property investors, to see, if there could be room for you guys to actually do business with one another. Also, different Facebook groups as well. There are different Facebook groups out there that are more centered around certain areas. For example, if I go on Facebook group called properties to rent in Chelmsford, Essex, there'll most likely actually be a Facebook group for that. And people will just list their properties on there that they have available to be rented. So that's definitely could be a shout as well. But one thing that you want to make sure you're doing before you take on any properties as rent to rents, it's so important as well, is you actually want to make sure that the person you are chatting to or that you're dealing with is the actual landlord or the property owner of that property. Because there's been a few times and a few instances where we've nearly been scammed. We haven't been scammed, but because we've done the right checks, we've come to realize that, okay, this person isn't actually the landlord or they don't know the landlord. And a very simple way to do this is by going on the website called the Land Registry, and you have to pay like £3 or so. But by you paying that amount, you will be able to find who the owner of the property is. You're able to get their names and also their details as well. And if that's matching up with the information with the person you're speaking to, cool, no problem. If that's not matching up, then obviously that's red flags right there. So it's very important that you're also making sure you do that as well. Now, another more specialized, slightly advanced way of getting deals for yourself that, some people do, and it definitely can work very, very well. Although, there is a little bit of a cost to it, is by, posting leaflets and letters to different addresses around areas that you're looking to target. Some people post hundreds, thousands of leaflets, letters in a single area. And, this is something that a lot of estate agents do as well to this day. And it actually can work pretty well as well. So that's more of like a advanced strategy that, to be fair, some people do at the start, which you definitely can, but that's also something that you can do. It's not a must, but it's definitely an option. Now, another very, very important thing that you need to make sure you do, that if you do correctly, will increase the trust a lot with landlords when you are actually speaking to them, is actually understanding the area that you're looking to target. And by you understanding the area you're looking to target, you'll be able to demonstrate that knowledge, that expertise when you're actually speaking to these landlords. And they'll think, oh, okay, cool. This person obviously knows what they're talking about. They obviously know the area quite well. And you know what? I'll even walk you through right now the very first area that I actually took my first deal in, just so you're able to see what I did to kind of get an idea as to, how that area can work well for service accommodation, and also the type of demand there is there as well. Come check it out. So this right here was the very first area that I actually took on my first rent-to-rent unit in. It's actually an area called Slough, which is just outside of London, to be fair. So if I'm just checking out this area very quickly, instantly, what do we see, or what do I see? I can see that Heathrow Airport is right there, which is probably like one of the biggest airports in Europe, if that makes sense. There's millions of people traveling through there each and every year. So for me, that could be one thing that I use when it comes to actually pitching landlords. I say, hey, look, Mr. Landlord, as you know, Heathrow Airport is not too far away from here. We have people, of course, coming in and out, traveling back and forth, that obviously need accommodation whilst they're here, whilst they're traveling, and we'll be looking to provide that. Or perhaps, we could be looking to provide accommodation to the airport staff. The cabin crew, for example, that are coming from different countries. They need a place to stay for, temporarily, a few nights. These are the types of people that we could be looking to accommodate in this specific property as well. So that's one thing instantly that I'd noticed before. But not only that as well, there is a massive tourist attraction nearby, which is called Windsor Castle. Now, Windsor Castle is, again, a massive tourist attraction. It's like a big castle that people come to check out, of course. And, that brings tourists from all over the country, sometimes, in different parts of the world, to actually go about checking that out as well. So, again, that could be another thing, visitors, tourists, holiday makers. Even over here as well, they've got Legoland, which is a resort. It's a theme park, and that brings tons of people to the area on a regular basis, to be fair. So that is another thing that I could use to my advantage when it comes to pitching the landlord, in my pitch. As you know, Mr. Landlord, we've got the resort right here, the Legoland Resort, we've got Windsor Castle, we've got Heathrow Airport, and this is the demand that we are essentially looking to service. And also, when I came to do further research on Slough as well, I'd actually come to realize that there were actually a lot of corporations that had their headquarters over there. We're talking tech companies, finance companies, all these different companies that actually had their HQ in Slough. So what that also means is there's definitely potential for there to be demand from corporate travelers, business travelers, people that are traveling to the area for work trips and business, along with leisure purposes as well. As you know, we saw the theme parks, Heathrow Airport wasn't too far away as well. So again, these are things that, if I'm taking on a deal in Slough and I'm trying to pitch a landlord, I can demonstrate my knowledge of the area itself, what's taking place, the demand that we're looking to service, for the landlord to see that, okay, this person knows what they're talking about, and, they're obviously, they know their stuff, basically. And you know what? Another massive, massive mistake that I see so many people making when it comes to actually taking on deals for themselves is that they actually dismiss some of the best opportunities that are out there. And to be fair, these opportunities, a lot of the times, are properties that are not in the best condition. I'm gonna be honest with you, they're properties that are in a shambles conditions. Like, most people just look the other way when it comes to seeing these properties and considering taking on these properties. And the reason for that is because, of course, people want to take on good looking properties, they want to take on the best apartments and the best buildings, and, they want it to be aesthetically pleasing. But the thing is, a lot of the times, the properties that are not in the best conditions sometimes can be the best opportunities. And the reason for that is, first, the landlords could be a lot more open to wanting to work with you because you could position it in a way in which you're going to let them know, hey, look, Mr. Landlord, if I take this property on, I'm going to be adding value to it. I'm going to be giving it a light refurb, and I'm going to be transforming it, and you're not going to have to pay anything out of your pocket because we're going to be taking care of the costs. You know what? Let me show you an example of what I actually mean right now. This is a property right here that I'd taken on a little while ago. This property was also in Slough as well, by the way. It was a 3-bedroom apartment, and from what you can see from the pictures, the property itself, I mean, it was a bit of a shambles, I'm gonna be honest with you. But you know what? Because I already had properties in Slough, I knew that that area worked well for this sort of model. I just needed to make sure that I got this property to a certain standard to be able to allow me to run it as an Airbnb and service accommodation, to have it be profitable. And I took the property from looking like this to looking like this that you're seeing on the screen right now. But honestly, that specific property right there was making me just a little over £1,000 per month in profit. So do you see what I'm saying? Like, that specific opportunity, most people would have just dismissed it completely. And I've actually asked a lot of people as well in the past, hey, look at this picture right here of this deal. Is this a deal that you'd actually consider taking on? I swear to God, 95% of them say no. It's crazy, but that deal is actually making me a decent amount of money each and every month. So I say that to say, don't make the same mistake that most people make. Don't dismiss, some of these properties just because they're not in the best condition, they look a bit shambles, whatever the case may be, because sometimes those are the best opportunities. And it's something that a lot of the times the landlord could be a lot more open to as well, because you're actually going to be, adding value to that property and actually doing the work to get it to a high standard. And guess what? When you finish up with that property, you're going to be giving the landlord the property back in a brand new condition. So that's obviously a massive selling point that you can use to your advantage when you're pitching these landlords that have those types of properties. Now, there is something very crucial that I actually want to share with you that you definitely need to know. Remember what I said before about when you're speaking to landlords, the 2 main things that you want to get right is you want to make sure that they're building trust with you and you're able to build up your credibility with them. The credibility part is so important because I'm going to be honest with you, nobody wants to work with amateurs and nobody wants to work with people that don't know what they're talking about. And to be fair, unfortunately, a lot of these landlords do get the sense when someone is new. And because of that, it makes them a little bit more hesitant and a little bit more less likely. Now, I'm not saying it's impossible. It's definitely not impossible, but it just makes it harder. However, what our students do, and it actually works out so brilliantly for them as well, is that when they actually get on board with us, what we allow them to do is leverage our credibility, and leverage us and use us when they're pitching to the landlord. What I mean by that is we'll have our students saying, for example, hey, Mr. Landlord, yes, myself, I am quite new to this. However, I am working with Yusuf Sheikh, for example, and his team. And, these guys have got so many different properties and they've been doing this for a very long time. And I'm actually working alongside these guys as well. And that helps out, honestly, a lot as well, because they're leveraging our credibility, they're leveraging our proof, they're leveraging the properties that we have as well. And it does actually make it easier for them when it comes to securing deals for themselves. And this is something that our student Lewis used, for example. He was able to get started off with this business and actually leverage us when approaching these landlords. And within the space of 5 months or so, he was able to get his business to the point where he secured 4 properties that would be generating him £4,000 per month in profit. And by the way, I also have an interview with him on my YouTube channel as well, so you can feel free to check that out as well. But not only that as well, there's also our student Ahmad as well. Exact same thing. Ahmad was able to leverage us to his advantage when it came to pitching these landlords and actually using our credibility. And because of that, he was able to get to the point where he was able to secure a total of 8 properties that would be generating in between £5,000 to £6,000 per month in pure profit. Now, look, another important thing that you need to understand as well is that there are different common landlord objections that you'll hear, quite often from these guys. And honestly, a lot of these objections just simply come from a place where they just don't understand how this model works. But of course, like I mentioned before, it's on us to ensure that we're educating them on how it works. For example, a common one you'll hear from time to time is, oh, isn't this subletting and subletting is illegal? It's not allowed. Well, yes, Mr. Landlord, this is subletting, but it's a legal form of subletting through a company let. It's completely legal. We have the right paperwork in place to allow this to be fully legal and fully compliant. And to be fair, you do actually get some of them talking about how either themselves or people that they know have actually had bad experiences with rent-to-rents in the past. Now, obviously with this, you need to approach it a bit more careful as well, because it's never nice when someone's had bad experiences with rent-to-rents and you're trying to take on their property as a rent-to-rent. But honestly, nonetheless, at that point, you still need to highlight the fact that, look, there are bad people and cowboys in every single industry. And unfortunately, this one is no exception. But I can assure you that with us, we are fully trustworthy and we are fully reliable, and we can show you, our company setup. We can show you our website. We can show you all our compliances, and I'd be more than happy to give you whatever you need or show you whatever you need to put your mind at ease, to let you know that we are actually people that you can trust with your property. And honestly, in that situation, in the scenario where, you actually do speak to a landlord that either they've had bad experiences or they know someone that have had bad experiences, in that scenario, it honestly comes down to you working on having them build trust in you, and obviously at the same time, you building your credibility as you're speaking to them as well. But look, the key thing that you always want to keep in mind and you want to approach every single phone call with is you want to do more listening rather than more talking. The person that does this the other way around, that does more talking and less listening, that's the person that, gets sent that way, basically. So you don't want to be doing that. Now, another big concern that a lot of landlords have when it comes to this specific model right here is parties. If you're saying, look, I want to take your property on, I want to run it as a service accommodation, Airbnb, one of the negative stigmas that's attached with Airbnbs is the fact that, people book properties, they throw parties, they trash it, they're only there for 1 or 2 nights. And for a lot of landlords, understandably so, this is a pretty big concern. And to be fair, there was a landlord that I was speaking to a while ago that I was pitching the idea of rent to rent to, that brought this exact same objection my way as well. And as a matter of fact, I've actually got a clip of that for you to check out as well. So let's take a look.
Okay, so what would you say is the biggest things that would be putting you off about this sort of thing?
Well, again, not knowing who's in that property. We've got, great relationships with our neighbours at the moment. I don't want to be getting called up at 11 o'clock at night because, parties going on, there's noise complaints, the police are around, we've got squatters, people that have moved in and not left, or they're running goodness only knows what. You might rent it out to one human being, but 20 turn up,
Okay.
I need to be assured that this is going to go to, professionals who are not going to be running parties and upsetting our neighbours.
I see. No, I completely get where you're coming from. Now, look, what I will say in response to your concerns, which are very valid concerns, by the way, we have been in this business for a number of years now. I can assure you, when it comes to getting the wrong types of people in our properties, whether it be people, coming to throw parties, doing mischiefs, up to no goods, the likelihood of that happening to us, and I'm not just saying this, by the way, I can prove it, it's pretty much none, zero.
It's not none. Well, we all know, we've all been there, done that, gone to stay in an apartment and got other people in the service departments next to you where they're, running a party to 4 a.m. or whatever. Of course. I just don't want that to change every weekend, get a different person in there.
The reason why I can confidently say that the risk of that happening to us is pretty much zero. And I'm not saying this is zero, but I'm saying it's pretty much zero, is because, we've had things like this occur in, the past. And this is the distance past, by the way. And we've seen these things take place. We've learned from it. We've put in place the right procedures, the systems, the vetting process. So if I'm being honest with you, the last time that we had someone, come into one of our properties and throwing a party, even playing loud music, if I'm being honest with you, yes, I would say. This simply comes down to the vetting process we have in place, the system, and also the team that we have that are extremely thorough when it comes to allowing certain types of people to stay in our properties. Because look, I can open up the door to any Tom, Dick and Harry, but the problem is now, if I do that, yes, okay, we'll be making money, but that exposes more risks and dangers of letting the wrong people in there that will disturb the neighbors, that will cause damage to the property, that will, smoke in the property, damage things in the property. And to be fair, we don't want that because you're not going to be happy, the neighbors are not going to be happy, and as a result, it's just going to not work for anyone, if I'm being honest with you, and we don't want that. The reason why we're able to make this work so well is because we make sure that the assets that the landlords are entrusting us with, we're treating it like our own assets. I'm a landlord myself, and I understand the responsibility and the level of trust that goes into entrusting your property with someone. And I can assure you, this is a massive part of the reason as to why things that take place and that go wrong in properties just don't happen with our properties, because we treat them like our own. We maintain them like our own. We just don't have the wrong types of people coming in because we just wouldn't allow that. And even in the worst case scenario, if that were to happen, if somehow someone slipped through the cracks, got through all our systems, and then they actually did it, we would would find out within an instant what's taking place, and we will get it shut down immediately before anyone even notices.
So for that clip you just seen, it wasn't necessarily just parties that the landlord was worried about. That was one of the things she was worried about, but also, she was worried about just having the wrong types of people in there overall. But you could see from that clip I just showed you that, I was able to overcome that objection with such confidence and deliver my message with such confidence. And that is so important, making sure that what you're saying, you're saying it with such confidence and such conviction and such belief that it just really allows you to drive the point home. And on top of that as well, I also highlight the fact that, look, if we get people in there throwing parties, doing mischiefs, it's simply bad for business because people are going to complain, the neighbors are going to complain, nobody's going to be happy about it, and we may get our stuff shut down because you don't want to do it anymore. So because of that, it's in our best interest to ensure that we are not allowing these types of people to book our properties. And to be fair, if they slip through the cracks, despite, them going through our thorough vetting process, we'll have them shut down instantly. So again, this is the way you need to come across with landlords that have those types of concerns. Now, remember what I said before about when we take on rent-to-rent deals, the contracts typically are for 3 years. Now, this is true, but some landlords, may have some concerns with this. And to be fair, I've actually spoken to quite a few landlords in the past that have shared this exact same concern with myself. And to be fair, I understand where they're coming from. And right now, I'm actually going to show you a clip to where there was a different landlord that shared this exact same concern with me and how I was able to, respond to that concern as well. So let's take a look.
So what kind of lease are you looking for? What length of lease are you looking for? Because I'm assuming if you're going to put some investment into it, you're going to be looking for a longer lease.
Of course. So the usual lease we would take properties on is usually a minimum 3 years. We can do longer if that's something you're comfortable with, but that is the usual amount.
Okay, I mean, 3 years sounds fine, but that's a long time to be committed. I mean, anything could happen. I may decide I want to sell the property, or, there are a number of things that could happen. I mean, how does that even work? Because that's a long time to be committed to rent to somebody. And if I need to release funds in the meantime, that would be... I'm not sure how comfortable I'd be with that.
What would you be comfortable with? What duration would you be comfortable with?
I don't know. Without sitting down and really having a good think about it, I don't know. But 3 years, you see, anything could happen. I mean, life changes, life throws things at you. And could I commit to somebody for 3 years and not sell the property? I don't know. Of course.
Now, I completely get where you're coming from. What I would say, there is an option for us to potentially include a break clause. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, that term at all, but we're happy to include, let's say for example, a 12-month break clause in the contract. And if you do decide due to unforeseen circumstances that you want to take the property back, this is something we're happy to accommodate for. It's not a problem.
Right, okay, so you can do that. Okay.
So yeah, look, it's pretty understandable why landlords have that sort of concern. With that specific landlord, she mentioned, look, what if I want to sell the property? What if I want to release, funds from the mortgage, whatever the case may be? Or maybe there may be certain landlords that just don't want to have the same rent locked in for a 3-year period. Maybe they want to just increase it over time. So there could be a number of different reasons to why landlords would feel a bit uncomfortable with doing, a long-term let. So you'd have seen in that clip I just shared with you, I was able to, put forward the option of putting in place what's called a break clause. Now, very simply put, a break clause is when you are, let's say we put in a 12-month break clause. And then when that 12th month arrives, either myself or the landlord can choose to activate that break clause. And by them activating that break clause, it basically ends the contract. By the same time, I would approach that with extreme caution, because the last thing you want to do is take on a deal for 6 months or a year, and then the landlord end up taking it back because, they can see you're making good money from it and they want to do it themselves, or they just change their minds for whatever reason. But sometimes it's honestly just a judgment call. So for that landlord, it was more of like a, judgment call I decided to go for. I did that with a different landlord before in the past, but with that landlord, it was just the case to where they wanted to get a feel for myself before they wanted to commit to a longer term contract. So I just put a 6-month break clause in. Once they could see that I was good for it and, I was actually a good tenant, then we can just go past the 6 months. And then that's exactly what they did, to be fair. But I would be very careful with this, because I know people that have been burnt by it. They've included 6-month break clauses and they've invested so much money into the deal. And then the landlord, for whatever reason, after 6 months, activates the break clause, takes the property back. And yeah, it's just not good. Now, I spoke about approaching landlords to try get deals for them. I didn't really touch on too much how to go about doing that with estate agents. And there is one massive mistake that people make when it comes to targeting estate agents that just makes them flop pretty much. And this massive mistake is targeting massive estate agencies. The reason why this is a massive mistake is because if you're targeting a massive estate agency, you know, that's got offices across the country, across the world, etc., they're multinational. Let's be very honest. Why are they going to want to do business with you? Like, who are you? Who am I? You know what I mean? Like, and realistically, they're probably already working with, you know, people that are already doing rent to rents, but that are on a much bigger level, if that makes sense. So they've probably already got those partnerships, and the likelihood of them entertaining you is very, very slim. So I'm not saying it's impossible, but I'm saying it's a lot slimmer, if that makes sense. What you want to do instead is you want to go for the smaller estate agencies. You want to go for the estate agencies that are still building themselves up, you know, that are not massive, that are not too big, that you can add value to, if that makes sense. And how you can add value to them is very, very simple. You're going to be providing an exceptional service to their landlords. You're going to be giving them guaranteed rent, no void periods. You're going to be taking care of the property management for them on their behalf. You're essentially going to be doing the estate agent's job for them with the landlord, but the estate agent still gets paid, if that makes sense. So this is how you want to go about, you know, pitching the estate agents when you approach them as well. And you more want to focus on the smaller ones, if that makes sense, or ones that are not too big, to give yourself the best possible chance. And realistically, you don't even need to be working with that many estate agencies. If you have 1, 2 solid estate agents that you're working with, you know, that could be a potential stream of continuous deals they're sending your way on a regular basis. And that's powerful. That's very, very powerful. And that's why, you know, you actually do want to put in the effort and do want to put in the work to establish those relationships with the right estate agents to help you get things on the roll. So just keep that in mind. That's extremely important. Now, when it comes to you actually taking on a deal, there's a few key things that you need to know when it comes to not spending too much money on a deal, which is another major mistake that a lot of people make. Because look, at the end of the day, this is a business and we want to look at the numbers. We don't want to invest too much money into a deal, you know, for it not to make us a nice return, if that makes sense. So always pay attention to the numbers. But I'm going to share some game and some source with you right now to be able to minimize the upfront costs for yourself when you're getting into a deal. First, actually don't pay the rent straight away. What I mean by this is have what's called a rent-free period in place. So let's say, for example, you know, I take on a property. I'm not going to pay the rent there and then. I'm actually going to pay the rent later down the line. This could be 2 weeks down the line. This could be 30 days down the line. So you want to give yourself that rent-free period to allow you to, for example, get the property fully ready and then be able to generate bookings from that property and then use the bookings that you've generated from that property to pay the landlord's rent, you see? So that's the first way of doing it. The second way of doing it is not paying a deposit. So deposit, the way I look at it, is completely dead money, to be fair. Like, I don't like paying deposits at all, but most landlords, or pretty much all landlords, require them. But you can negotiate with them to not pay a deposit. And how you can do that is very simple. You can let them know, hey, look, I'm going to be collecting deposits from the people that are staying here, if that makes sense. So the people that are staying here, they're going to pay me a deposit, our guests, and if anything goes wrong, if there's any damages, we're just going to use that deposit to cover the damages, if that makes sense. And of course, you want to assure them that if there's any damages that, you know, are crazy or whatever the case may be, you will cover it out of your own expenses. That's not a problem whatsoever. So that's another very good way for you to minimize the upfront cost for yourself. Now, another really good way for you to minimize the upfront cost for yourself is by, instead of you getting new furniture for the place, you're getting secondhand furniture, for example. So you're going on Facebook Marketplace, Gumtree, eBay, whatever the case may be, and sourcing some secondhand furniture. Or alternatively, what you could do, instead of buying furniture outright, you can actually lease furniture. So you'll, you know, pay like a monthly fee of, I don't know, £200, £300, or however much it is, to lease furniture from a company, so that you're not spending, you know, £3,000, £4,000, £5,000 up front to furnish a property, which will obviously reduce the upfront costs for yourself. Now, I have a red flag checklist that you can actually follow to ensure that you're not taking on any properties that are bad or too risky. Let me break it down for you right now. First, the rent being too high. We do not want to overdo the rent. Again, this is a business. Make sure you're not overpaying the rent. This is extremely important. And this is how a lot of people get burnt and don't end up making too much money, or sometimes even losing money. It's because they're paying too much in rent. Also, if the property needs too much work doing to it, if you're going to have to invest, tens of thousands of pounds and, it's not making back that much, it's probably worth passing on that property, if I'm being honest with you, even if it isn't a good location. And another one, this part right here is so important and it catches so many people out. You want to make sure that if you're taking on a flat, that the lease on that building actually allows short lets. A lot of people don't check this, and because of that, they end up taking on deals. They run them as Airbnbs and service accommodation, but then they get caught by the building managers and they get shut down immediately. So it's so important that you're making sure that the lease on the building actually allows short lets. Very important. Now, let's say you've found a nice, saucy, banging rent to rent deal for yourself. Congratulations. But there is also another option that you could go down. So instead of you taking that property on for yourself, maybe, your cash is tied, funds are a bit tight, you've already invested into another deal, whatever the case may be. Instead of you letting that deal go to waste, you can actually package that and sell it on to someone else for a fee. This is known as deal sourcing. And the average fee that you can charge for a good deal is around £3,000 per deal. And trust me, there are a lot of people out there that are looking for these types of deals on a regular basis. So once you've gone through the process of actually securing the property, now we need to focus on how we can go about actually maximizing the profits from that specific property as well. Because this is the scariest part for a lot of people. I'm going to be honest with you. And if it's your first deal, it's always going to be the scariest part, because you're going to think, oh my gosh, what if I can't rent it? I can't let it out. I'm going to have to pay the landlord's rent, etc., etc. Don't worry, I'm going to give you source so that doesn't happen. Now, first things first, when you actually take on the property, you need to go through the setup phase when it comes to actually getting the property fully set up. Now, what we like to do, and this helps to allow us to get bookings a lot earlier rather than waiting for the property to be ready before we get bookings, because sometimes the property can take a week, 2 weeks, sometimes even longer to get ready, depending on how much work actually needs to be done to it. But what we do now, as soon as we can take on the property, we can actually get photos of the property empty, and then we can get someone that does Photoshop on somewhere like Upwork to virtually stage that property. What that means is they'll Photoshop furniture in there, some nice design, etc., etc. Of course, you're gonna have to make it look similar to that. But if you're able to do that, which is not that hard to be fair, then you can attract bookings from early on, because you can upload it straight away to Airbnb and booking.com whilst you're setting it up. And of course, make it available 2 weeks down the line, but that will just allow you to get bookings from early on. So that's just a little side note. Also, when it comes to actually setting the property up, again, we've got to look at the costs involved. Personally, if you're just starting off, I'd recommend for you to keep the costs tight. Do as much as you can yourself. If the property needs painting yourself. If it needs furnishing, actually put together the furniture yourself, etc., etc. And just do the manual labor work yourself when it comes to setting up the property, so that you're cutting down on costs. Or maybe get family, maybe get friends helping you out as well. Or if your time is super tight, you can't do any of that, then you can hire people to do that on your behalf. Now, there are a few key tools and softwares that you're going to need to integrate into your property to allow you to maximize the profits from this as well. And there's one key one that so many people don't use. It's actually very shocking. And this is what's called a dynamic pricing software. Now, what a dynamic pricing software is basically a software that prices your property automatically rather than you having to do it manually. It is very helpful. It allows you to charge a lot more of a premium during weekends, during times when there's something going on in the area, during certain periods, certain, holidays, or whatever the case may be. So this is highly recommended. I am shocked a lot of people don't even use this. It's called Price Labs. Also, you're going to need something called a channel manager. Now, I showed you our channel manager previously. We use one called Zivu. Now, what a channel manager is very simple. It's a place or a hub where you can manage all of your properties, your bookings, and your guest communication all in one place, to be fair. So it's not really a must for one property, but when you build up to quite a few properties, it becomes a must. And to be fair, you can start it just with one property as well. And that's what I'd recommend. Also, you're going to need a guidebook for your property as well. Some people do choose the physical guidebook, and this is a guidebook that has all the information about the property itself. This is the Wi-Fi code, how to access certain places, the nearby shops and areas, whatever the case may be, and just all the information they need to know about the property itself. This saves you a lot of hassle from these guests actually contacting you at 11 p.m. or whatever the case may be to figure out how to, operate the cooker, for example. And we like to use what's called a digital guidebook. The platform that we use to create this digital guidebook is a platform called TouchStay. We literally just create it on there, and then we send the guest a link to this, and then they just have all the information there. And also making sure that you have the correct cleaning and maintenance team. This is so important, especially with your cleaning team. They're gonna be the heartbeat of your business. If you get a bad one, it's gonna cost you a lot of money. You can research them pretty easily, to be fair. Google, you can go on Facebook and go into these different communities and ask for recommendations, for example. Or you can just do a Google search and find local cleaning companies in your area as well. But they need to have experience with cleaning Airbnb properties. Very important. Now, once you have your property up and running, there are a few little hacks that you can go about implementing to allow you to get bookings quite quickly. Now, the first thing that you need to remember is that the main thing for you when you actually have an Airbnb, a service accommodation property, and you've made it go live, your main focus shouldn't be to, make money straight away. Your main focus should be to build up on as many good reviews as possible, because if you're able to do that, the money will come, trust me. And a very quick and easy way for you to build up a lot of good reviews is by you allowing very short stays. So typically, we don't usually allow one-night stays, to be fair. However, if we have a new property, we most likely will allow one-night stays just to allow us to get as many bookings as possible in a short time period, so that we can get as many reviews as possible in a short time period. So that's just a little side note for you as well. Also, for example, just going above and beyond for your guests early on, literally treating them like kings and queens from early on will massively, increase the chances of them actually leaving you a very good review. We're talking leaving them guest baskets, handwritten notes, for example. A lot of people appreciate that, to be fair. Find out the reason they're booking your property. If they're booking your property for, let's say, their anniversary and it's for a couple, maybe order them some champagne, order them some, something romantic, something that will be very grateful that you actually ordered for them. And trust me, that works wonders. And just make sure you're checking in with them throughout their stay to make sure that everything's cushy and they're sweet and they're being nicely taken care of. Trust me, it's gonna go a long way. First one is London. Now, some of you guys may be thinking, oh my gosh, London, what do you mean? Let me explain. I'm not talking about the whole of London, but there are definitely certain parts of London to where, doing service accommodation and Airbnb just isn't a good shout at all. Let me explain. So we get sent a lot of service accommodation deals, rent-to-rent deals all the time. A lot of them being in London. And when we take a look at these deals and actually analyze them, we actually come to realize that a lot of these deals just don't make sense to take on because the numbers a lot of the times just doesn't add up. I'll give you an example. So let's say we get sent a 2-bedroom apartment, for example, and the rent on that is £3,000 per month. But the amount that we can charge per night for that property, if we lay it out as a service accommodation on Airbnb, will maybe be around £250 per night. Now, based off those calculations that I've just did right there, the rough profits that you'll be making from that place, assuming that you get it to 70% occupancy rate, is between £700 to £800, which, if you're paying £3,000 in rent, it's really, really low. It's super low in my opinion. And that's the reason why we don't really entertain a lot of those types of deals, because number one, the rent is high. And number two, you're going to put a lot more money into that deal because you got to pay the rent, the first month's deposit, for example, you got to furnish it. But then that would mean you'll be taking a lot longer to make your money back, if that makes sense. Whereas there may be certain areas where the rent is, £1,200, £1,500 per month, but you're making pretty much the same amount of profit as the example I just given you. Now, of course, what I mentioned right now is just an example, but you do typically come across a lot of these types of, property deals, especially your 1 to 2 bedroom apartments in London, to where a lot of times the numbers just don't make sense. And honestly, it really comes down to the amount of people that are actually doing service accommodation in certain parts of London. I'll give you another perfect example. Many, many years ago, when I first got started, I used to have a lot of properties in the Canary Wharf area. Now, at that time, rent was cheaper. And the nightly rates was, for a 2-bedroom apartment, you're probably looking at anywhere between £250 to £300 per night back then. So, you'd make decent profits. I was making, £1,200 to £1,500 per month in profit, sometimes more, which was fine. But now the rents have gone up. So now those same properties now are going for, £3,000, over £3,000, £3,500, sometimes more. But the nightly rates haven't really increased as much as well. So technically you're making less money than you were before because the nightly rates aren't as high. Oh, sorry, they're pretty much the same, maybe going a little bit higher, but the rent is a lot higher compared to how it was before. Now, look, having said that, I'm definitely not saying that, London doesn't work for this. I'm definitely not saying that. That's far from the truth. However, what I am saying is that you want to be very selective with the types of areas that you're looking to take properties in London. For us, for example, we're ideally looking for larger properties. We're looking for 3, 4, or even more bedroom properties, houses ideally, that we can take on, because typically the bigger the property, the more money that you can make, because the more people you can sleep, the higher nightly rate that you can charge for that as well. Another thing worth mentioning as well, when people are getting in the game, they're looking to take on the same types of properties. They're looking to take on studios, 1 beds, 2 beds, which, don't get me wrong, they can work well. But at the same time, there's a lot less people that have houses, and you can make more money as well. And there's not as many people targeting houses compared to flats as well. So, and typically what I've seen, when you're speaking to a landlord that has a house, they tend to be a little bit more open to the idea of doing rent to rents compared to, landlords with apartments, especially apartments in hotspot areas that everyone's trying to get an apartment in. With us, for example, I'll give you the golden rule that we use. Any property that we're looking to take on, ideally, we want the amount that we can charge per night to be roughly 10% of what the actual rent is. So, for example, if the rent on the place that we're looking to take on is £2,500, ideally what we want to be charging per night, this is at least for us, the criteria that we set for ourselves, is around £250 per night. So from experience, I know from that maths I've given you just now, from that deal, we could be making roughly around £1,000 per month, maybe a little bit more as well. And if we're investing £7,000, £8,000 into that deal, that would mean that we're getting our money back within 7 to 8 months. And of course, the months after that is complete profit. And typically you want to have these deals for at least 3 years. So if you're someone that's looking in London as well, this is definitely a criteria that, you can take on board for yourself and actually start using to assess whether a deal makes sense or not. I'm not saying that it has to be like that, because there are certain deals that we've taken on where the nightly rate wasn't necessarily 10%, it was a little bit less, but the numbers made sense and, we went ahead with it anyways. It's just a rough guide that we actually go about using that helps us when it comes to analyzing deals. Also, other types of areas that I would actually go about avoiding myself personally are areas that everybody else looks in when it comes to getting started off with Airbnb and service accommodation. I'll give you a perfect example. Manchester City Centre. Literally every single person across the country knows that Manchester City Centre can work very well for Airbnb and service accommodation. And typically what I see is a lot of newbies that get started off with Airbnb service accommodation. And especially if they're based up north, that's like their automatic default, place to look. Oh, let me look in Manchester City Centre. Let me tell you why I personally wouldn't do that. First, I wouldn't do that because the competition in that area is just super, super high. And it just makes it a lot more difficult to actually go about getting deals in that specific location. And also another thing, to be fair, that's the main thing. Like, I don't really think of anything else. I'm not trying to make it harder than necessary for myself to actually go about getting deals. And I can tell you, some of the properties that we've taken on, some of the best performing properties that we actually taken on currently to this day are in areas where most people wouldn't even look at taking on deals in. I'll give you a perfect example. We took on a property in Peckham, South London, Peckham. But, initially, when I come across that property and I heard about it, I'm like, ooh, I don't really know. Peckham is kind of the hood, it's the ends. I'm not 100% sure it will work. And, there's not really that many service accommodations in that area. But I kid you not, when we took on that property, we got so many bookings for that property. Like, we were shocked, we were gobsmacked. And that is a very good money earner. So you want to be like looking at these areas where the competition isn't super high, but the demand is super high. But if you're looking in a place like Manchester City Centre or Birmingham City Centre, for example, a lot of the times the competition is just stupid high. And I'm going to be honest with you, a lot of the times those properties have very small profit margins. I'm talking about, smaller studios, 1 beds, and even at times 2-bedroom properties as well. And not only that as well, most of those buildings, nearly all of those buildings that are in the city centres, they have leases on them that don't allow short lets. A lot of people just take the risk. I'm not gonna lie to you, when I first got started, I used to take a lot of those risks. I never got caught out, I never got caught out, so that was good. But Yeah, like I know people that have got caught out. I know people that have got caught out, you know, wanting to take the risk and, you know, they weren't too cautious with it. And then, you know, all it takes is for you to get some bad guests, for example, you know, some guests come into the place, you know, being loud, being obnoxious, throwing parties, playing loud music. The neighbor reports you or the neighbor complains to the building managers. They clock on what you're doing and they just shut your shit down instantly. Another thing that a lot of these building managers do is they'll literally go on Airbnb. They'll see what properties in that building are listed on Airbnb, and if they find a property, they're like, if they find your property that's in that building, that's how they'll find you and they'll shut you down immediately. So you have to be mindful. This is especially true with new builds, you know, like new developments, for example. So you just need to be very, very careful, and you need to make sure that you actually go about checking if that building actually allows short lets or doesn't. I know I said before I used to do it, but this was back in my reckless days, man. So I wouldn't recommend it. And if I'm being honest with you, this is why a lot of the times we mainly focus on houses, is because houses, you don't have the issues with the leases because they're freehold properties. They're not leasehold properties. Other worst types of areas to target when it comes to doing service accommodation and Airbnbs are areas where you get a lot of undesirable guests booking your property. What do I mean by that, for example? I mean, if you've got your place literally in Party Central where people are throwing parties like every other night, and you've got a property, especially if you've got a smaller property, like a 1-bed or a 2-bed or a studio, maybe not a studio, but a 1-bed or a 2-bed, the likelihood of people coming to throw parties in your property, especially if you allow them to book for one night, super high, super, super high. Because guess what happens when people throw parties? When people throw parties, they, you know, trash the place, they mess up everything, they steal some stuff, and it's not a nice feeling, man. They piss off a lot of the neighbors as well. The neighbors snitch on you because you pissed them off for having people in there that threw a party. And that's how, you know, that's how landlords get notified, and that's how landlords a lot of the times don't want to continue doing what they're doing because, you know, they trusted you with their property and you're having people come in the property and throw parties. Yeah, man, it's not a good move. Anyways, going back to the main point, if you are getting a property in a location where, you know, there is like a nightlife scene, you know, especially in the city centre, in a place like Shoreditch, for example, or even Liverpool city centre, for example, then, you know, the chances of you having parties thrown in your property is high. That doesn't mean that you have to necessarily avoid it completely, but it does mean that you have to take extra precautions to make sure that, you know, people don't slip through the cracks and, you know, don't allow you or don't basically try book your property to throw parties. How you can do it is very simple. Don't allow people to book for less than 2 or 3 nights. That's a major one. And also just make sure that you're thoroughly vetting the people that actually, you know, try to book your property. What you can do as well, you can install like a Ring doorbell outside of the property as well, so that you can actually see the amount of people that are coming in. And if you see a lot of people, then of course you can put a stop to it. Also, another type of area that I would actually go about avoiding, it seems pretty obvious, is areas that have low demand with Airbnbs and service accommodation. But at the same time, it's not so obvious for a lot of people. I'll give you another example. We had one of our students, Lauren and Leon, killing it in the game. They've got about 45 plus properties right now, making serious money, about 35K per month in profit. But I had a landlord actually reach out to me. This landlord was based in Redcar, which was basically like next to Middlesbrough, way up north. But she reached out to me. She offered me some properties in Redcar, and I'm like, I mean, listen, Redcar is a bit, it's a bit super far. I don't really know the area too well. However, I've got Lauren and Leon, which are not. They're about an hour and a half away. Maybe they'll be interested in that. So I passed the opportunity on to them. They contacted the landlord, and when they checked out the area, they could see that there was a lot of construction work taking place in that specific area. But they weren't actually based in the area themselves. They didn't really know too much about the area, but that's the only thing they did know. So they decided to take a chance on it and actually go ahead with it. But, after speaking to them, a couple months down the line, those properties actually didn't perform the best at all. Yes, they'll be getting bookings here and there, but it was just super inconsistent. And somewhere like Redcar, I mean, most people don't even know where that place. Like, I didn't know that was even a place until, that landlord actually told me about it. So you want to be mindful not to take on places and areas that just have inconsistent demand. Ideally, you want to be taking on properties in areas that actually have different types of demands. So you have construction work going on, for example. You also have, some corporate companies that are based there, some business parks. Not only that as well, you have a lot of tourist demand as well because, maybe there's some tourist attractions. There's like an arena, there's some venues. There's got a lot of hotels in that area. So you want there to be a different mixture of different types of demands, so that you are actually, in the safe zone when it comes to getting different types of people. Because if you're only looking to target contractors, for example, or construction workers, because that's the only thing that's going on in that area, I mean, yeah, that can be good. But at the same time, I mean, what happens when the work stops? Or what happens when there's, when there's been a delay in the work and they have to stop it for whatever reason. But then that means you're in trouble and you're not making no money. So that's the reason why I would say be very mindful of targeting areas that are out the way. And also there's not really, it's got inconsistent demand, or maybe there's just one type of demand there. Personally, I would stay away from that, especially early on. If you're a little bit more seasoned, a little bit more experienced, then yeah, maybe you can go about taking risks with that.
Now, I've just walked you through the numbers and also the theory behind this business model right here. But now I actually want you to see it with your own eyes. So I'm going to be walking you through behind the scenes of a few of our properties with my business partner, Andrew, so that you have a much better understanding of what's actually taking place. I'm going to be walking you through what we pay for these deals, what we make, what went right, what went wrong, and also just a lot of the stuff that you just really wouldn't find in a lot of these, training videos without necessarily being on the ground. So come through and check it out.
So look, this is the building right here. It don't look like much from the outside. And I can't lie to you, it don't look like much from the inside either, but we're working on it. We were working on it.
Work in progress, man. I mean, you're still making money. People are booking. We're getting 5-star reviews.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
But do not put garbage bags here. That's mad. So people used to put a lot of garbage bags outside.
That's bad.
Yeah.
So this is the one of the one beds that we have in this block. We've got 3 one beds in this block.
This place, I mean, we've just taken it on, but it's pretty much ready.
Pretty much, bro. This was a turnkey deal, which means it came fully staged. Everything was in here already. So all we had to do, take the keys, put it online, boom, start making money.
I mean, I just noticed this one. What the hell is this, bro?
Yeah, man, we need to get that.
No, we didn't even see this, man. No, we need to get this fixed. Nobody's booked this place yet, is it?
This place has been booked still.
Has it been booked?
Yeah.
And they've seen it?
We've had like 3-4 bookings already. Yeah,
they've seen this, yeah?
5-star reviews, bro.
Yeah. Oh, 5-star reviews?
Yeah.
Oh, man. Bro, if I
reviews.
came and I saw that, I would not be leaving a 5-star review.
So we've got to fix that.
Yeah. But
So obviously the previous operator, there's a few bits and pieces that they didn't fix before they left, which they were meant to, but so we're gonna have to.
What's the story behind the previous operators though? Like, how comes they gave up this deal?
So there's actually something going on in their company, and they're sort of restructuring the way they're working. So they're jumping out of the service accommodation game. I believe going into something else. So they're letting go of all their service accommodation units, and this is one of them.
Okay.
Yeah.
I see. So it wasn't a case to where it wasn't profitable. That's why they let it go.
Nah.
Okay.
Something's happening in their company.
Okay, that makes sense. So how long we had this place for now, would you say?
This has been, we got it on the 1st of October. So what's that? Less than 2 weeks.
2 weeks?
Less than 2 weeks, bro.
Okay.
Yeah. And to be honest, what we had, occupancy-wise, one of our units, we got a month-long booking in there. One unit already had a long-term tenant, so we just continued that. Apart from that, we've had about probably 85% occupancy since. So, yeah, quite decent performance so far, man.
Yeah?
Yeah.
And in terms of, I think I spoke to you about the numbers, but remind me again, in terms of the costs involved with taking on this deal, because this is just one flat and we're basically, if I'm not mistaken, controlling the whole building.
That's it.
How many units in the building?
So there's 6 flats in this building. There's 3 one beds. There's 2 2-bed 1 baths, and there's 1 2-bed 2 bath.
Yeah. And what's the rent in total for everything?
Total rent is £12,000. So 2K average per unit.
2K average per unit.
Yeah.
£12,000, yeah.
That's it.
Okay. And in terms of how much money needs to go into this deal to take it on, how much would you say again?
Total was, I think, £54,000. So that was £12,000 first month rent, £12,000 deposit, £12,000 for the furniture, and the rest was sourcing fees. Yeah, which was, I can't remember what the number was.
Okay, so 54K in total.
54K total.
That's
but when you think about it, 6 units, 54 divided by 6, that's what? 9,000 per unit.
About 9,000 per unit, to be fair.
Quite decent for London.
Yeah, that's very decent.
And fully furnished.
Fully furnished. No, that's a very, very
Plus
good deal.
Plus sourcing fee.
Yes. The
You see what I'm
sourcing fee
saying?
as well.
So,
Yeah. No, it's a very, very decent deal, to be fair. I can't lie. You know what it is? It's more like I'm putting myself in the shoes of someone that's new to it and looking at a deal like this. Not even someone that's new to it, like even just people that just think, bro, you can buy a house with that money.
That's true.
Like you can literally buy a house,
That's
put
true.
a deposit down for a nice house.
That's a decent house as well, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, but I feel like showcasing these types of deals, can really just showcase what other options people have. Because look, we didn't even talk about the profits just yet. So like expected profits, what are we looking at for this specific?
So we're looking at an average of around £900 per unit.
Okay.
So 900 times 6, what's that? 5,400?
5,400?
Yeah,
Okay,
average.
yeah, average,
So obviously
yeah.
summer, when I listed it, I made a big mistake, which was I forgot to stop people from booking way in advance.
Okay.
So right now we've had bookings in August next year, but people are paying £400 a night.
Okay. Wow.
£400 a night for one night though. And that's the problem. Obviously.
Okay, yeah.
But still, that's a high rate. Do you know what I mean?
I see.
And the average nightly rates that we're expecting is around 210 for the 1 beds, 240 for the 2 beds. So if someone's paying £400 for a night in the summer, bro, imagine what the rest of the summer is going to be like.
Okay, I see. So this is, if I'm not mistaken, this is a house, or this was a large house that had each of the individual rooms converted into self-contained studios.
Exactly. It still has the HMO license, so I believe they used to run it as a HMO as well.
Yeah.
But now, yeah, they've let it out to a company, and we're doing our Airbnb thing with it.
And that company's obviously us. So let's check out that first bedroom right there, man.
This is flat 1. This is the smallest room in the block. It's a decent little room. I mean, the bed is a double bed in the corner there.
But it's quite small, man.
Yeah, the bed is a little small.
How much would you say this little room gets set out for?
So at the moment, we're still trying to build our reviews. We're getting about 110 pounds a night, something like that.
£110 a night for this room?
Yeah.
And that's more so being charged as a minimum.
Yeah, that's the minimum right
So
now,
what's like the average?
Average, we'll go up to 130.
130 a night?
Yeah.
To be fair, though, it's similar prices that local hotels are charging. You know what, yeah, most people would think with this sort of place, like, nobody would want to book this place, but we've come to see that that's actually not the case.
Shocked, bro. With that Camberwell unit we got, that was our first studio block, and I'm shocked. The occupancy rate is ridiculous.
So there's a lot of people booking
And
it.
a lot of people love studios, and I came to think that not everyone wants to live in luxury. Do you know what I'm saying? Some people just want something cheap and cheerful. And if you can squeeze 2 people in a room that you can cook, you got your kitchen, everything. Why not?
Yeah.
So people love studios, man.
No, I get you. And I think so there's 5 units in total in this.
There's actually 6 units in this building, but the landlord still has control of 1.
I see.
So we just have 5 units that we're running at the moment.
Okay.
Yeah. And this is one of the nicer rooms with a garden. So 2 of the flats have gardens. This one and flat number 2 as well.
Yeah, someone's staying there though, right?
Yeah, someone's in flat 2.
Yeah, space is a little bit tight though. It is a bit tight, but I
It's
mean,
alright.
it's okay.
Yeah, I mean, you got a little chair to sit on.
Yeah. All right, so in terms of how much we spent on this place right here, I think it was about 28,000 if I'm not mistaken.
28,000, correct.
28,000. That was for the rent, deposit,
Furniture.
setup, staging, etc.
And sourcing.
And sourcing fees. And profit-wise, remind me again, what's it looking like?
Average profits, 3,000 a month.
3,000 a month.
All units added together.
The whole building.
The whole building.
Okay. And that means what? Just a little under a year it will take to get all money back out?
28K divided by 3. Yeah, roughly something like that. Yeah.
It's under a year.
Yeah.
3-year deal, right?
3-year deal, bro.
That's
So
not-
after 12 months, pure profit.
That's not bad to be fair. So between this deal and the other deal, the overall profits per month, if I'm not mistaken, is just a little over, I think it's a little over 8 grand,
Yeah, 8.4.
8.4, something like that. It's
Exactly.
over 100 grand a year, man.
Exactly, bro.
From 2 deals, if you
units.
think about it.
That's why blocks are the way, bro.
Bro,
That's why blocks are the way.
if you think about it, like, let's keep it real. Like, people are not even making that from that's like a dream income. And it's being made from 2 units, if you think about it.
It's nuts.
You get what I'm saying?
When you put it like that, it's nuts.
Like, think about it, bro. You were working a full-time job once upon a time.
Yeah, man.
And you were making what, how much?
I was making about 50K a year.
50K a year. That's before taxes, though, I'm guessing.
That's gross, yeah.
That's
before
gross. Bro, after taxes, bro,
taxes. Yeah, it's peak.
it's peak. Sitting down over here, business partner, Andrew. At this current moment in time, we've got about 40. How many properties we got at the moment?
We got 44 units, something around 44.
44 or so, yeah. So look, with this talk right here, it's pretty much going to be us sharing what the back end looks like when it comes to, you know, what setting up a property looks like, how to go about managing it properly, how to market it properly, and just making sure you're doing everything necessary to actually make money from your property. And we're also going to be talking about a lot of the mistakes that we made, a lot of the hiccups, sharing that, what we learned from it, just so you're able to take as much value as possible. So, Andrew, I mean, I have to give you credit, bro. You are the guy that manages the entire operations.
Yes, indeed.
Cool, I've closed it. What is the next step that I need to be taking to making sure I'm launching it in the correct way and the best way possible?
Okay, so first thing, you need to have a plan. Don't ever take on a property, sign the contract without having a plan of what you need to do in order to get a property live. So one of your first priorities is to get a property live as soon as possible. Even if you have a rent-free period,
you want to take advantage of that and start getting bookings in whilst you're not paying for rent. And so one of the first things you need to be doing is getting your listing on the booking platforms. So your Airbnb, your booking.com. Those are the two first platforms you need to list on. Don't worry about anything else. Don't worry about direct booking website, Expedia, VRBO, all the other platforms. Don't worry about those. But in order for you to list on those platforms, there's a step before. You need to get the pictures done. But in order to get the pictures done, you need to furnish the property. And so, I mean, all of this, you should already have an idea of how you want to furnish the property before you even sign the lease. Because whilst you're doing your competitor analysis, you know what the properties who are doing well, you know what they look like. And so from there, you can start getting ideas of the color themes you're going to use, the standard you're going to set the property at. Because you might be in a lowly area, a low class area, where even if you to spec up the property to a high standard, you're not going to reach those clientele. And so you have to have that sort of plan, like, okay, cool. What sort of standard am I reaching to with this property? And then, you know, when you're viewing the property, you should definitely take a video tour, definitely take pictures of all the rooms so that you can have a layout of what all the rooms look like. From there, you can start filling in the rooms with furnitures and stuff. And AI comes in handy. We did this with our properties in Leeds.
Okay.
So once we had the pictures and the video tours, we were able to use AI to sort of populate the rooms and give us an idea of, okay, cool. This is how we're going to place the bed. This is where we're going to put the TV, etc., etc. So when we signed the lease, everything was on order. We knew exactly what we were doing.
By the way, have we got videos and pictures of that, right?
We do. We have the before and we have the after.
So we'll just show that. Yeah. Okay.
We can slap that in. Yeah. So yeah, get the property furnished, get professional photography done, and then list it on the platforms. And then after listing it on the platforms, then of course you put in your channel manager, you do your pricing, etc., etc.
Yeah.
And then all the other little stuff come in: utilities, bills, broadband, all of that stuff.
How do we what do we look for when it comes to how we know how we should set up the property? So you mentioned, okay, if it's for a high end market, we set up higher end. If it's, you know, mid range market or lower range market, we set up accordingly. So what do we look for?
So it's the competition. When you're looking in an area, you should be assessing, okay, who are the best performers in this area? And to judge a best performer, you need to look at their review score and their review count. If someone has loads of reviews, like 100 plus, and their review score is 4.8 or more, you know that this guy is a top competitor in the area. And go into their listing, look at their pictures, look how they've laid out their pictures, read the reviews, what sort of guests are they getting. So there's actually a hack. With Airbnb, you can actually see where the guest comes from. You can see if they've come from the UK, the US, etc. So you can see, okay, this is a very tourist heavy property. And also when some guests leave reviews as well, they tell you what they came for. Say, oh, our lads were working in the area, they love the property, so you can tell us contractors or an insurance company or whatever it is. So using all those things, find your top competitors in the area and try and keep up to their standard. As long as, you know, they have a high review score, have a review count, and their calendars are quite booked up as well. So those are the key things to look for. And the amenities as well.
Okay.
Go through their list of amenities that they have and
like amenities, for those that don't know what that means.
So amenities are the things you have in the property. Coffee machine, hot tub, sofa bed. You know, those little things that really add a special touch to it. Wine glasses.
Okay.
You know, things like that.
Yeah. What are some of the things that a lot of people miss and get wrong during the setup process that you've kind of noticed?
Yeah. I would say some people can go a bit overboard with their furniture. They decide to go for very high-end furniture, not realizing that although you think people have common sense, your guests have common sense, they will break it. See, if you go for a very expensive mattress, someone's probably going to piss on it and then you have to get rid of it.
Yeah.
And you can't charge the guest the full amount. And so you need to be wise with the items you're selecting. So choose high quality items, but you don't have to choose super expensive items. Otherwise, you're going to be wasting your money.
Yeah. Now, I've seen a lot of people like that, man, where they spend like flipping 20 grand when they could have spent like 8 on the setup.
You know what I mean?
I think there's like a lot of emotional, sentimental attachment. Oh, this is my first property. I want to make it look so special. I can't lie, I was a bit guilty of that with my first property as well.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Maybe you were too, I don't know.
I mean, with my first property, I knew I didn't want to spend too much.
Okay.
So I wanted to
I get you.
keep getting more properties, but a lot of beginners do make that mistake.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And actually, another thing I'll say as well is try and do it yourself as much as you can. When it's your first property, you don't really want to be using a staging company unless you literally have zero time.
Okay.
If you do have some time on your hands and you have some people that can help you, try and do it yourself, because there's a lot that you learn when you are setting up your own properties, the sort of shops you should go to, what it actually takes to set up the property, and you can save quite a bit of money as well.
Okay. So we've got like a mixture of different types of properties that we manage. So we've got studios, 1 beds, 4 beds, whatever the case may be. Talk to us about, on average, what the costs look like depending on what property or what size property you're actually setting up.
So based on my experience, the rule of thumb I've come up with is, for 1 bed to fully furnished from nothing in the property except for white goods, it's about £3,000. And for every extra bedroom, you add £1,000 to it. So for 2 bed, that'll be 4K, 3 bed, 5K, and etc. etc. For studios, on average, we've probably spent around 1.5K to 2K to furnish a studio. That's a studio with a double bed, with all the like coffee machine, microwave, all of that stuff. About 2K for studios.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to ask as well. Like, what does that include? Exactly, like furniture, for example. What else are we thinking in terms of what that includes?
Yeah, so furniture is literally okay. So Airbnb, you're aiming for people who need a property that's fully furnished.
Okay.
So a property that they can call home.
Okay.
And so when you think of like your own home, you have your sofa, you have your dining chair, you have your work desk, you have your microwave, your toaster, all those little bits and pieces. You have your pasta container, you have your sugar, coffee, and tea containers, stuff like that. All of those things are part of furnishings. And then you have to include your bedding, your towels, unless you're gonna rent those.
Okay. Like, we've slipped up a couple of times during the setup process.
Yeah, we definitely have. Yeah.
What's like, because obviously you were managing that. Like, let's keep it real with the people. Like, what's been some of our slip ups and big ones that to be fair?
So the first property that we ever took on, with our partnership, we used a staging company.
Okay.
And because
which is a company that stages the property for you.
Which is a company that does all the furniture for you. So they pick the furniture, the color themes, everything, and they install it.
Okay.
So they project manage that whole thing. So they give you the fully furnished and finished product. And we didn't realize how expensive they were going to be. And the investor that we had at the time, the budget was quite tight. And so what we envisioned and what we got with the budget was not to the standard that we really wanted to do. It was okay, but we definitely wanted to get to a higher level. But the staging company, they can be quite expensive because they charge for project management, they charge for selecting the furniture, and they charge for the labor for setting things up.
Yeah.
So that's been one of our early mistakes.
Okay. And we end up actually bringing that in-house eventually, right? So we're hiring people, work with us, send them, set up the properties, and we're obviously cutting down on costs by doing that.
Yeah, exactly. And it's been amazing. The in-house team that we have is actually my family, as you know. And so it's everyone's winning. The investors saving money, we're getting a high quality property, and my family are being put on, as you say it.
Yeah.
Being put on.
No, that's big stuff, man. That's big stuff, to be fair. Okay, so you reckon we've pretty much covered everything to do, or like the main fundamentals with like setting up a property and launching it?
Yeah, pretty much. I don't want to deep dive too much into like pricing and stuff like that. That's very, very technical. But yeah, the fundamentals are get a property furnished, get your professional photography. Like, it's non-negotiable now. So when I started 2022, you could get away with taking pictures on your phone and you still get bookings. But now what I've noticed is that doesn't cut it anymore. So 100% get your professional photography booked. It makes a massive difference. So that's one thing you should never skip on with your setup.
Yeah, no, it actually surprises me how many people don't do this.
Yeah,
which is insane. Like, you'd think this would be common practice.
Yeah,
and it kind of reminds me of the thing I talk about, where it's like, in not just with the Airbnb business, but with any business, you have a small percentage of the market that dominate it, and then you have like a larger portion of it that are just like average, mediocre, etc., etc. And even with me, when I go on Airbnb, the thing that, like, I'm a visual guy. I think everyone's a visual person.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Do you get what I mean? So it's like we're visually drawn to the things that look nice. And if your thing doesn't look nice, then it's just,
You're gonna skip it.
you're gonna skip it. So no, I agree, man. I agree. That is a slept on thing that is very easy to do.
Yeah.
Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah. But you got to make sure you actually get someone who knows how to do Airbnb photography. Don't just get any photographer, because there's certain angles, there's certain effects that they add in, there's certain ways that they present how things look in order to make it market for Airbnbs. So for example, one thing I learned recently was one of my photographers that I used in Leeds, he actually turns on the tap in the bathroom and lets it run whilst he's taking a picture. And when I compare that with a picture of the tap not running, it just adds a certain level of, okay, this is like, I don't know, it just makes the property look a little bit better. Because with Airbnb, you want to show people what the property looks like in action. And so that's why you want the pictures to be busy. I always tell, the students, make your pictures busy. Show books out, show your chopping board and your knife out, show your crockery and stuff, your tables being set up with the plates and knives and stuff like that. And so yeah, those are the little things that having a photographer who knows what they're doing adds, and it just completely ups the levels of your photography. And our team turned around a studio of six studio units literally in 2 days. And I always applaud them for that, because that's insane.
Yeah.
6 studio units, all completely unfurnished.
Okay.
So it can be within 2 days. Sometimes it can take a little longer, depending on the items, depending on the season as well.
All right, cool. So we covered everything with the setup process of a property, but now we launch. So when it comes to that part, what are we doing to make sure that we're getting maximum bookings?
So again, it's all about competition. You need to look at what you look like on the competitor map. And a lot of people don't actually do this. So on Airbnb and Booking.com, search for flexible dates, within the next few months, for a week or so, and then see when you have the list of all the different options come up, see what you look like when you're scrolling through. Is it something that catches your eye compared to everyone else? Is it bright enough? Is your cover picture the best picture of the property you have? And if not, you need to rejig it and change things around. So that's your pictures, and then your title as well. One thing I like to do with the titles now is put in the city that you're in, and also put in like a key amenity that you have, maybe a garden, maybe a hot tub, maybe a cinema room, and then also add in how far you are from a station. Because one thing I've noticed is that, for example, our property in Fulham, if I'm searching on Google, if you type in 4-bed property Airbnb or 4-bed house in Fulham Airbnb, if you have those keywords in, someone can find you on Google. So someone doesn't even need to go on Airbnb to find you. We call that SEO. And so having a very good title is very, very important. Airbnb gives you 50 characters, and so you need to maximize the use of those characters. Put in your key amenities, put in the location you're in, put in how far you are from a station, and anything else that will draw a guest. And then another thing with marketing as well is your price. You need to make sure that your price is set competitively. And this can be quite tricky because there are times where you set your price to the standard, the level that you want it, but then your rate of bookings go down. But that doesn't always mean you're losing money. And so that's one thing you gotta sort of experiment with. Find the price point that you're getting a good rate of bookings that doesn't scare you too much, but you don't lower your price so much that you're having 100% occupancy but making very little profit.
I get you.
And so you have to find that balancing act to your price. And it should be something you're dynamically changing every 3 days, 4 days, depending on, again, your competition and how your pace, it's a very technical term, your pacing. But I don't want to go too much into that.
Of course. I mean, to keep it very, very simple, we use price labs for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that helps out. That helps out with a lot of the tedious stuff involved with that.
Yes.
It
helps out with the daily pricing.
Yes.
But you still have to go in and do the adjustments, like the minimum price you want to set, the price from which the calculations are made from, stuff like that. So it's not a set and forget.
Okay. Yeah. And okay, so there is competition, pricing, what else?
Photography, listing title, even your description, man. So once you have to think about it as a guest journey. Think about the guest journey. So someone wants to book a place in Camberwell. You know, so they search Camberwell, they search their dates, they have all these listings come up. So first thing they see is the either the price or the picture. They see the title. If they're interested, they click on it. Once they click on it, they want to find out more details. They want to now go through the pictures. So make sure your pictures are in an order that makes sense. Don't have your garden picture as your first picture and then all of a sudden jumps to the bathroom. Like, try and make it smooth and try and have as many pictures as possible. And your description as well. Fill in the gaps. Like, use up all the characters you can. Okay. You know, let them know everything about the property. How many people does it sleep? What sort of guests does it attract? What are the key things in the area? How far you are from all the stations, all the key things that people usually come to the area for. Make sure you fill in your amenities. Like, take your time to make sure you go through every single detail when it comes to your listing. That's very important. People skip that because they think that's not important.
And I feel like, you know what, this has to do with more the setting up of the property, but it's linked to amenities as well.
Yeah, marketing. No, this is all marketing. Yeah, because marketing is how you attract the guest.
Yeah, but in terms of like the features, for example, what are the top amenities? It's obviously parking.
Yes.
And some people may not want to, like, the place they get may not come with parking, but then they may not want to pay for parking. But then they may not realize that that's actually costing them in the long run by them not having as many bookings as they would if they did have parking.
Exactly.
You get what I'm saying? And we've seen that ourselves.
Yeah, 100%. So, especially with the bigger properties, because contractors love big properties, 3 beds, 4 beds, and up. If you don't have parking, then 100% not going to book your property. A lot of the time, they don't want to find their own parking. And so, get parking where you can. And it's not hard. You know, if the property doesn't have a driveway or doesn't come with parking, look at the council permits. If not, you can use various apps like Just Park and stuff like that to find local parking spots. There could be car parks that are local. You know, make sure you put parking in your property.
But we're talking about renting it on a monthly basis rather than just like each individual time.
It depends. It depends on the target market.
Okay.
If you have a property, like for example, our property in Leeds, it's right in the city centre. And so as you can imagine, parking is quite difficult there. So we don't pay monthly for parking on that one. Because what we found is that not everybody comes for parking. It's right next to the train station, so people get off the train. And so a property like that, you wouldn't want to pay monthly. But a property like in Radnor Road, Peckham, where literally every booking on a weekday is contractors, it makes sense to get a monthly permit that you pay for.
I get you. No, that makes sense. So what, like when it comes to like marketing, okay, like let's say we're getting bookings for the property, but we want to get more. Like we want to maximize occupancy. Like, would you say there's any like hacks, strategies, tactics that gets implemented on our side to get that done?
Yeah, so direct bookings is one way. And
what does that mean?
So a direct booking is where you have someone book with you directly rather than going through a third party like Airbnb, Booking.com, Expedia. And with that, of course, Airbnb, Booking.com, they charge about 15 to 18% of how much the guest pays as a commission. But if the guest comes to you directly, you're cutting out that cost. And so it's a win-win because you can give a discount to the guest and you can make more profit. And so direct bookings are an amazing way of maximizing your occupancy because it becomes cheaper for the guest. And one way that you can do this, firstly, is making sure that in your pictures, in your descriptions, your titles, wherever you can, let people know who you are, what your company name is. You can't put your website or anything like that. And you have to be a little bit careful of how you do it, but let people know that they can come to you direct and they're going to get a discount. This works very well with guests who have stayed with you already as well, or even guests who have booked. Once they've booked, you can call them up. Look, I can save you 10%, 15%, if you come book with me direct. And so direct bookings is definitely another great way of increasing profits and occupancy.
Do we not have like QR codes on some of the pictures on the listing so that people can scan it and then they go direct to the website?
Exactly. We have to be very, very careful of how you do it.
Okay.
We've experimented with many different ways. Sometimes Airbnb have just rejected it completely, but we've figured out a way of how to make it actually work.
Okay, cool. So letting people know more about yourself so that they can come with you directly.
Exactly, yeah.
And is that people that are already booking with you or is that people that haven't booked with you yet?
That's people that haven't booked with you yet.
Okay.
So, like, for example, one thing we always do is we mention our brand name. So in our description, we'll say, this property hosted by the Noir Collective or A-Star Stays or whatever the company is. So people then know, okay, this is the company. You can even add LTD, so it makes it even more clear that's the company. And then someone who's a bit switched on will go on the internet, Google it, find your direct booking website, or find your number or email or something. They can book with you direct.
Yeah, and I mean, in the past, like we've got a decent amount of long-term bookings.
Yeah.
We're talking people booking for like 2, 3, 4, 5 months, 6 months at a time. Obviously, it's not all the time, but it's happened quite a few times, man.
Yeah.
And like, what would you say, you know, let me not say the secrets, but what would you say goes into getting those types of bookings?
Yeah. So first of all, it's not just Airbnb and Booking.com out there. There's loads of different other platforms. Like one of the platforms that we get a lot of long-term bookings from is Open Rent. So once you list your property on there, you know, market it correctly, good pictures, good description, let people know that's available for short lets. People will book that. You know, I've had 20, 30K bookings come from Open Rent. But also, I've had big bookings come from Airbnb as well, but Airbnb and Booking.com. But big bookings can only happen if your calendar is set up correctly for it.
Yeah.
You know, if you have someone booking one night 3 months in advance, no one's going to be able to book a 3-month, 4-month booking. And so you need to make sure your calendar management is on point.
Okay, so that involves if someone wants to book, I don't know, 4 months from now from our property, they can't just book for 1 or 2 nights.
Exactly.
It has to be for at least like, I don't know, 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
Exactly. Minimum stays.
Okay.
And all of that can be done within your channel manager, within your dynamic pricing tool like Price Labs.
Okay, I see.
And as well as that, you need to make sure that you've appropriately discounted your property. I remember about 3 weeks ago, someone reached out to me on WhatsApp saying, "Oh, hey, I've actually done some plumbing at one of your properties before, and I want to get into this Airbnb thing. I got a property in Wembley. You know, what can you do with it?" So we had a consultancy call, and he was wondering why he wasn't getting bookings. And when you look at his pricing, it was just completely off. For a 3-night stay for a 3-bedroom house, it was charging 5K. And he didn't even know that.
Yeah.
And once I was going through, I was thinking, no one's going to book at these rates. And when you try to look at a month-long stay, although his calendar was open, month-long stay was available, it was like 20K for 1 month. And it's like, come on.
Yeah.
So you need to make sure that if you are aiming for longer-term stays, you got your pricing set up correctly. You got your discounts set up correctly. You know, if someone wants to stay for a month, you know, give them maybe like a 30 to 50% discount from how much on 1 night stay costs, and then you're more likely to get those longer term bookings. I think another thing with marketing is again, it's very dynamic. So you don't just set your properties, descriptions, pictures, all of that stuff and just leave it there. You have to constantly be changing things around, adapting your description, adapting your pictures, sometimes even adapting it to the season. You know, we don't necessarily do it, but I've seen some hosts where when it's Christmas, they update their pictures to show Christmas trees, stuff like that. And all of that is marketing because, again, that catches people's eyes and can increase the bookings that come your way. And another thing with marketing as well, you know, don't just stick with the main OTAs that you know. Explore. See what other OTAs are out there. You know, there's actually so many different channels out there. As well as Expedia, there's hotels.com, there's VRBO, there's just so many. So make sure that when you do get time in your hands, you're listing yourselves on there as well, so you can maximize how much people can see your property and where they can see your property.
What's some of the biggest mistakes that people make when it comes to like the marketing and, you know, trying to max out the bookings that they're getting?
Yeah, I think just focusing on Airbnb. Airbnb is a huge platform, but it's not the only platform. You know, you need to definitely be spreading yourself. But whilst you are spreading yourself, make sure you're managing the calendars. So this is where the channel manager comes in. And the channel manager helps you so that if someone books on Airbnb, it blocks out those same dates on Booking.com and Expedia and all other platforms. So as you are expanding the platforms you're on, make sure that you are connecting it to your channel manager so everything is synced up. So yeah, biggest mistake is just sticking to Airbnb and not expanding. And even if they do expand, not connecting them. And so they get double bookings and that becomes more headache.
Operations. We spoke about marketing, setup, but then there's obviously the day-to-day stuff. Now, at this moment in time, I think you mentioned we're on 43, 44 in total, something like that when it comes to units. Obviously, there's like a massive difference with what the day-to-day looks like with managing, I don't know, 4, 5 properties or 1 property compared to like 20, 30, 40.
So the main thing is yeah, just maintaining your listing. Guest communication will probably be the bulk of your time. You know, you have people messaging, how do I get in the property? I can't find the door. What's the internet?
Yeah.
Can you send me the check-in instructions now, even though I'm checking in 2 weeks? Can you send me an invoice at the end of my stay? A cleaner, you know, going into the property and saying the guest hasn't checked out yet. And so you're having to call the guest. Why haven't you checked out? Your checkout was at 11. Why is it now 12? You're still in there.
Yeah.
We're going to have to charge you, and then having to go into the system, charge them, and then they're trying to charge it back. And
Yeah.
there's a lot that goes into operations.
Okay. But I mean, it's not, of course, we're at a certain point property wise, but with having a handful of properties, it wouldn't be too intensive, time wise at least.
It depends. It depends on how well you've set up automations.
Okay.
If there are no automations, you're having to tell the cleaner every time they need to clean. You're having to send the check-in instructions manually to each guest. You're having to charge each guest manually. It can be quite intense.
Okay. So what automations would you recommend to people to have in place to make it a lot less intense for them?
Yeah. So number one, have a channel manager. Have the system that integrates everything into one place. So all your bookings, all your pricing, all your cleaning, all your guest communications, all in one system.
Okay.
So that, you know, if you have your cleaners, they can log into that. They can see the calendar. They can see the time people are checking out. Even if someone has changed the time that they want to check in or check out, they can see that as well. So then you don't have to be chatting to the cleaner every day saying, oh, by the way, please clean this property at 12. Oh, actually, no, it's changed to 1. You know, having those in place. And automated messages, that is so important. You know, throughout the guest journey, there are certain messages that you have to send. So when they first book, thank them for booking, tell them what the next steps are before they check in, send them the full check-in instructions, Wi-Fi information, remind them of their checkout and their time. Also aim to just let them know that if you want to book again, you can get a discount. Have all those automated messages in place. And also check-ins. Yeah. You can set up automated check-ins as well. So maybe a few hours after their scheduled check-in time, you can send an automated message saying, oh, how are you finding everything? You know, is there anything that we can do to improve your stay so we can get a 5-star review from you, etc.
Okay. And what tools are being used to set up these automations?
So a lot of channel managers actually have them built in natively.
Okay.
So you don't have to have any external tools to add on to that. Unless you want to use stuff like AI or you want to use a external cleaning tool. Like there's one called Turno, which finds the cleaners for you and it manages the cleaners on that separate thing. But to be honest, starting out, just get a good channel manager that has all these things in place so that you can just have it all in one system. Yeah.
And also there's finding the right cleaning company as well. So it's a big part, man.
Huge part.
Yeah.
Huge part. Like when you get to a certain stage, you're not going to be going to the properties as frequently as you did when you first got it. And so you have to rely on your cleaning team. Like absolutely have to. And because you have to rely on them, you need to make sure that they know exactly what they're doing. And you have to minimize the chances of mistakes slipping, like mistakes happening and not being caught out. And that's when it becomes quite challenging.
So how, like with us, when it comes to finding the right cleaning companies to work with, like, and for those that want to know, like, what are some of the ways of doing that?
So when I first started out, I was getting my cleaners from Gumtree. The problem with that was cleaners on Gumtree, they're cleaners, but they're not necessarily Airbnb cleaners. And so because of that, there are some things that they miss. And then I started using Turno, which is a third-party cleaning app where you can just put out a project saying, oh, I need this property cleaned every week. This is my budget. And then people send bids and then you choose cleaners from there. Those guys are Airbnb cleaners. They usually come with their own equipment and stuff like that. And then you can get your cleaners through recommendations. So on Facebook groups, in certain Airbnb chats, just ask people, oh, what cleaners are you using? How long have you been using them for? You know, how do you rate their services? And yeah, you get them through that as well. Word of mouth.
Okay, word of mouth. Okay. I think Facebook is another decent one. I don't know if you've ever found any companies on Facebook, to be fair.
I haven't. I've found, not directly, I found it through maybe hosts on Facebook who've mentioned, oh, I'm using this cleaning company, highly recommended.
Yeah, exactly that, in terms of going to the Facebook groups, round service accommodation, Airbnb, whatever, and then either you posting in the group saying, hey, I'm looking for a cleaning company in this area. Can
Yeah.
you recommend anyone? Or seeing who's recommending people in that area for cleaning companies. So
Yeah, or some cleaning companies that actually advertise themselves. Actually, one thing cleaning companies are doing these days is that they're going to Airbnb listings and sending a message, which is a bit annoying because you see a notification saying, "Oh, you got an inquiry, £1,000," and there's a flipping cleaning.
Oh, yeah, they actually put a number there as well.
Yeah, it's a cleaning company.
So at the start, yeah, let's say you got the right systems and processes in place and automations. You know, time wise, what's it taking you if you've got, let's say if I've got 4 properties, what am I looking like time wise per week, let's say?
So I was working full time when I had about 8 to 10 units, and I was able to run it. You know, working a 9 to 5, and then after work, I'm dealing with my property business.
Yeah.
So I would say I was probably spending, with the right systems and stuff, probably 3 hours a day to manage everything, and that was smooth.
8 to 10 units.
Yeah, it wasn't that hard.
Okay, I see.
It's when we started growing and expanding, then it became, oh shoot, okay.
Yeah. What number did it get to before it started getting more intense?
That's a good question. It'll probably be the 20 mark, because that's when things tend to go wrong a lot more, and sometimes at once.
Okay.
So I'll probably say, yeah, the 20 unit mark is when I start realizing, oh shoot, yeah, this is taking up more of my time because so many things going on at once.
Let's talk about when this can go wrong, like real wrong. And we've had it go real wrong for us a few times. Yeah. So yeah, because we wanna keep it real. We don't want to just share the good side. So let's break down and talk to the people about some of the real crises that we faced with these properties that we've had.
Yeah. I think one is every year things are changing.
Okay.
And Airbnb is a very dynamic market. You know, a lot of things can affect Airbnb. COVID, for example. You know, COVID almost wiped out everyone from Airbnb. Even with recent events happening around the world, Airbnb is being hugely affected because people are not traveling as much. You know, when there's tight budgets, contractors, they might not travel as much. And even with contractors, they're not all year round. You know, when it comes to the winter period, sometimes they're there, but a lot of them go on their breaks, especially Christmas and maybe January.
Of course.
And so Airbnb is a very, very dynamic market. So you need to make sure that when you're taking on your properties, you don't have a property that's catered to one specific market. And that's some of the mistakes that we've made. We've taken on properties that are very, very good for tourists. Like when the tourists are booking, they're booking high rates. It's amazing. But as soon as it gets to the periods where you don't have tourists, things go downhill because it's too expensive for contractors, too expensive for students. Some insurance companies might take it on, but it's a 50-50. Do you know what I'm saying? And so that's one big mistake we've made, getting properties that are catered to just one type of market. Another mistake is assuming that just because you have properties with unique amenities, you're gonna outshine the competition.
Okay.
That's a very tricky one to monitor. So one of the properties that we got, you know, has a cinema room, has a hot tub. It's quite a big property, has a garden, even has a swimming pool, even though it's decommissioned for now.
Yeah.
And it was one of a kind for the area. And what we found is that weekends, perfect. You know, we have people booking very, very high rates. But during the weekdays, we don't, because it's not an area that tourists go to. It's near Heathrow.
Yeah. And
so initially you'd think that, oh, Heathrow's right next to the airport, so of course tourists will go there. But we literally get 0 tourists there.
Okay.
The whole market is just domestic people from the UK.
Like because we've been through a lot, man. We've been through, and we're probably gonna continue to go through a lot as well. Not even probably we are, but what have been some of like the major lessons that we've taken from like the whole experience that we're gonna apply going forward to put ourselves in a much better position compared to a lot of the others in the market?
Yeah, I'd say one thing: don't just look at the numbers for the property. Like, you need to assess the area. Like, there's properties that we've taken on where the numbers all made sense, but the area when you actually go to the area, it's just where the property is placed exactly. It's just not the best.
Give us an example.
So one of the properties we have in southwest London is in a very shabby part of London. There's a fish shop there. You know, there's the bins in front of the place. It gets very hot. It's not well ventilated. But on when you look on Airbnb and you do the competitor analysis, it's brilliant. And so yeah, people book because it's in an area that's good. But once they stay, you have the complaints about the fish smell. You have complaints about the flies. Complaints about this entrance. It's nasty. It's disgusting.
Yeah.
You know, and so yeah, one big lesson that we've learned is don't just look at the numbers, but actually assess the area as well. Exactly where the property is. Is it going to make guests comfortable? Is it gonna increase the chances of 5-star reviews? So that's definitely a major one.
I think one thing I've found that works really well with helping you understand what the experience will be like for guests that book your property is just staying in your own property.
Yeah.
Just stay in it for one night and then you will be able to see all of the issues and all of the problems. That same property you're talking about, I remember I stayed in it before. And I was like, bro, there's this problem, there's that problem, there's that problem. There was a lot of problems.
Yeah,
I was calling you.
The internet, all sorts. Yeah.
But we would never have been able to know that if I didn't stay there. Like, only a guest would have reported that. And at that point, we've already got bad reviews on Airbnb, booking.com. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's quite hard to come back from bad reviews. You know, reviews are everything these days. Everything. So yeah, that's very important. Stay out your properties before you go live. Like test everything as if you're a guest.
Let's actually talk about that because that is a big concern that people have. Is that okay? Airbnb, there's times when it's heavily booked up, and then there's other times where it's just the demand is dry, i.e. in the winter or whenever. What would you say to that?
So Airbnb is changing. So when I first started, winter was okay. You know, you still get bookings, still get everything's all fine. But what I found is that every year winter is getting more and more challenging. And so if you are taking on it's easy. So taking on a property in winter is the easiest time because even for normal tenancies, landlords kind of struggle as well to find normal tenants. So when you are taking on a property in the winter, do make sure that you have a property that can cater to people who will cover you for the winter. So students, contractors, those are the two main people that will cover you for the winter. Your winter won't be covered by short-term bookings. It has to be long-term stays. And so if you don't have a property that can cater to that market, don't take on a property in winter. Okay.
And with long-term stays, the guest types, we mentioned contractors are one of them. And
students.
Yeah,
students tend to, so there's two intakes. So there's the students that start in like August, September, but then there's also the students that start in right January times.
And that's been some of, I mean, from what I've seen, that's been where some of the biggest bookings have came from.
Yeah, all my big bookings have been students, either students or insurance.
Okay. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah.
And the big bucks.
With these students, is there anywhere that you're listing, or is it just Airbnb and booking.com?
I've never had students book from Airbnb and booking.com. Students always book through either Open Rent or some of the student platforms like Hybar, HYBR. There was another one I used to use, Homelike. Even on Rightmove and Zoopla, you get students on there as well.
Is there anything else we've missed?
I think one mistake that a beginner can make is putting all their eggs in one basket. And so, they have maybe an 8K budget and they put all of that 8K into one property.
Okay.
And with Airbnb, you need to have something to bounce back off. You need to have some excess that you can use in times of low. And so do not use all your money in setting up your property. Have some excess money. And to be on the very, very safe side, maybe 1.5 months, 2 months of rent would be good.
Is there any final words that you want to leave the people with?
If you're looking to scale, think about what you can be doing even with 1 or 2 units before you take on any more units.
You think that's the mistake people make, is that they try to scale too quickly?
Yes.
We kind of made that mistake.
Exactly. We 100% made that mistake.
Yeah.
They try to scale quickly with the current systems that they have that aren't sufficient for managing loads of properties. That is number one, the big mistake we've made, man.
Yeah.
Like, you don't realize how much it takes to run this many properties until you get there. And so one advice I would say is spend a lot of time setting up yourself to be able to handle loads of properties before you even get there. So I'm talking about building your documentation, your SOP, standard operating procedures, which means every single thing that you do, you have a documentation for it of how to do it. Making sure you set up your automations, making sure your contracts are in place, making sure that you have a good accounting software to manage all your finances. Like, set these things up from early, man.
I think one thing we didn't cover, which I think can be very useful for people to know, is obviously we're talking about rent to rents right now, but then the model, like our model right now, is more on the management side of things, to where we're now managing other people's properties for them and, running them as Airbnbs. And I feel like once you get to a certain level, that model makes more sense rather than actually renting the properties yourself.
Yeah.
Because you got less overheads.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's the thing with VAT, for example.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So like what number do you feel like when someone gets to when it comes to properties, okay, now you want to more focus on like the management model where you're managing properties for other people?
Yeah. So without going too deep in it, VAT is something that's compulsory once you're making £90,000 in revenue every year.
Yeah.
So revenue is literally the money that comes in.
Like from bookings, not even like profit.
Yeah, so not profit. So if a guest pays £200 for one night, VAT counts that whole £200, not even minusing the cleaning costs or anything like that. And so once you hit £90,000 in a calendar year, you hit the VAT threshold, which means you now have to start paying VAT on top. And so when you're getting close to that level, there are various things that you can do. You can speak to loads of accountants. They'll probably will have different opinions on what you can be doing. But once you're getting close to that threshold, that's probably the time to start going into management. VAT is not necessarily a bad thing if you got a property that actually makes decent money. So if you got a property with good margins, then you can deal with VAT.
Okay.
But if you're making like 10% margin or 5% margin, VAT will just wipe you out.
Now in the next section, I'm actually having a sit down with some of my older students. So Lauren and Leon specifically, and with these guys, they were able to scale to a pretty rapid level in a short space of time. So within the space of 14 months of me working with them, they got to the point where they secured over 40 properties and their business was generating around 35k per month in profit. But that's not the reason why I want to show you this video. The reason why I want to show you the sit down is because that whole process for them was not smooth. They faced major problems, major bottlenecks, and I want to show you the true behind the scenes of what it actually looks like when problems and headaches and stresses appear with this business right here as you're scaling and growing. Because I'm going to be real, it's definitely not all good and roses and sunshines. So if you want to get a true understanding of the stresses, the headaches, and what you're truly going to experience as you're scaling and growing this business right here, make sure you're sticking around. How many properties are you currently on?
So we're currently operating about 30.
Okay.
So we've actually scaled it back.
Yeah, I think when we first started, we were just taking anything and everything that would come our way, and then we got to a point and we looked at the portfolio and we were like, what properties are performing best in our area? Right, those types of properties are the ones that we want to now move forwards with. Which ones aren't? Let's scale down, let's say 1 bed's in our area or 2 beds in our area, and then see if then the demand that comes to the area now fills the amount of 2 beds and 1 beds that we've got. So we kind of looked at it like that to try and make the portfolio based on more what demand we actually had in our area. But until you get properties and you run that many, it's hard to know which ones are going to perform the best. So we got to a point where we're like, right, we've scaled it now. Now let's reflect, see what works best, get rid of the more time-consuming ones are the ones that aren't making that much money, and then we'll systemize, get our systems back in order, staff back in order, and then we'll grow it again with the ones that work best in our area. Because we've found in our area specifically 3 beds and 4 beds perform the best because we target contractors.
Okay. What were some of the things, because of course you guys grew very quickly. I was a first-hand witness to that. You know what I mean? So like with you guys, I think it was, I mean, I still got the interview on my YouTube channel, but I think it was 38 deals in 14 months, something like
It
that.
was something crazy.
Yeah.
And we scaled it right up to about 46, 47 properties.
So what were some of the things that you noticed that, okay, this needs fixing, and like these are the holes that are there? Like what were some of those things?
at one point we were using multiple cleaning companies and communicating with all these different cleaning companies and having consistent expectations, and getting those expectations was difficult because we had some cleaning companies that would see, oh, the property's not got a check-in today, so we'll leave that one until, you know, they're doing it for people's, and we'd always say it needs done for our check-in time. And then we get guests booking last minute, maybe 4 o'clock. Check-in time was 3 o'clock, so we're thinking, oh, it's all good. That, you know, the system's done its thing. Give them the details, and then they get there and say the property's not clean. And then we're like, shit, like why is that property not clean? And then we're ringing up the cleaning company, and they said, oh, we were just about to head there, but because it didn't have a check-in, and we were like, how many bloody times do we have to say if there's a check-in that day, it needs done for that check-in time? I think then forced us to start. Well, we started our own cleaning company, and then that was like, oh god,
Yeah, I remember.
That was a roller coaster. That is still a roller coaster.
because we started that, and then peak summer came. You know, we were saying last summer was crazy with the systems, and the cleaning company were like, right, let's bring it all in house. It's going to be beautiful. And then we didn't realize how many cleaners we'd need. So our job interview was like, they'd sit down, we're like, you got a pulse? I'd be like, yeah, like, you got the job. when can you start? And then as time went on, we realized, yeah, that was a stupid decision to make. Do you know what I mean?
And I think when you say about a lot, what sort of was the hard part of scaling so fast, I think that is a big thing. It's like you sort of just being very reactive rather than being proactive. It was very reactive with everything. Like every system we had in place was reactive. So like some guests were getting in without paying security deposits. There was guests like leaving the property a mess, and then they weren't getting charged the security deposit when they left. Like stupid system to have in place. What else were we doing? Like bills we didn't know what dates bills and stuff were coming out on, so that was all carnage. There was a lot, wasn't there?
Yeah, we learnt a lot, that's for sure.
But you know what, I've noticed something, like, because obviously there was a lot of things that, as I'm sure you guys can relate to, you have to look at, okay, this is wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong. But then I feel like that comes from us not having that attention to detail with everything involved with the business. You know what I mean? I feel like it's very easy to skip the small stuff, but then the small stuff compounds. That's the problem.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I feel like that's why most people kind of get it wrong. You know what I mean? They over skip the small stuff because they don't think it's important.
Yeah.
You know, even for example, one thing you mentioned, data. This is something that we, like, say somewhat recently started incorporating and actually looking at the data. Okay, what is actually the problem? You know what I mean? Okay, cool. There's flipping guests complaining about, or, you know, our average review score was 4.2. Okay, but why?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, they're complaining about the average, you know, sometimes they complain about us getting back to them within a certain amount of time. Okay, so who's shouting to them? Oh, it's the VA. Okay, so they're the problem.
Yeah.
They gotta go.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's one thing I have noticed, to be fair. That's one thing that I have noticed. And I've been very proactive on our side to make sure that we're really narrowing it down to get to the core essence of what the fuck the issue is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You know, another thing I've noticed as well, like, and this is more so like me observing the operators operating, you know, such as Andrew and other people. And what I've noticed is that because a lot of these guys are so in the weeds, it's not to say that it's very hard for them to pull themselves out of the weeds, although it is, but I feel like by them doing that continuously, they almost are like the reason why the business is not growing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it's like you're keeping busy, and like you've conditioned your mind a certain way to do certain things within the business because you feel like you're the best person to do it. You feel like if you give it to this person, they're gonna fuck up.
Yeah.
That's just, it's like nobody's good enough. Like I should just do it myself.
That's so true.
And then you train yourselves to think like that. But then the problem is now, like, you're just doing these flipping petty £10 an hour tasks.
Yeah.
When really and truly your focus should be on here, but we can't do that now because you're doing this stuff and you're scared to give it to other people because you don't know how to train other people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or you're just shit at recruiting.
Yeah.
One of the two.
Well,
or both.
I think you're exactly right. And like the stage one is being aware that that's the problem, because a lot of people, like you said, aren't aware that's the problem. And we are fully aware that was a problem, which is why we said no more properties. And in fact, let's scale it back to give us more time to train the staff that we've got and make sure, you know, systems are actually working, because we had them in place but actually working. And I think that's a realization in itself, because like little tasks like invoicing, for example, which is like, that's bringing the money in. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
oh, hello, I can have a 3-month booking on. Yeah, of course you can. And then it's I'll be like, I want to do that invoice. Whereas like you say, it's a £10 an hour task, but I'm scared to trust anybody else to do it, because if they've not worked out that maths correctly, and that booking's not done right. So it's like little things like that
Last
I found
summer,
hard to.
I was still putting out cleaning rotas. Like, fuck me, I was sitting there assigning staff to a property to clean. Like, that is not shit that I should have been doing. But yeah, right, like, once you're so far into it, you're like, but no one else knows how to do this, so it's easier for me to just get on with it.
You guys mentioned something, or I say it's interesting. It will be interesting for a lot of people, because I know you said you got a cleaning business, you got a laundry business. So from early on, you guys almost like vertically integrated different elements that were linked to the business into the business. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, you know that you're going to need cleaners for your business. Okay, why don't you just start a cleaning company?
Yeah.
Same thing with a laundromat.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And a few other things. So that's something that we are actually in the process of doing ourselves right now as we speak.
Okay.
When it comes to like integrating the cleaning, the laundry, the staging.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I feel like there's so much. There are definitely opportunities to do that, but I feel like, and you guys obviously, I feel like the execution wasn't that great, but the idea was good.
The idea
was good, but the execution wasn't that great.
Yeah.
But I feel like for people that are thinking about doing the same thing, I feel like it's as simple as starting off with, okay, what's your biggest cost in the business? And a lot of times it's cleaning. Let's be real.
That was
That's
what it
exactly-
was. Like,
that's
we were
what the
literally
idea
going
was.
through invoices from cleaning companies. We were like, it's like,
And they charge an
this is
arm and a leg.
lot to be paying out. Yeah, this is a lot to be paying out, and the systems weren't. If you were paying that much money out and everything was perfect, like there's some services worth paying for, isn't there, when it comes to business? But to pay all that out and things aren't running perfectly, that was where the.
How are you guys taking on how are you taking on new properties? Like, what's your method of doing that?
Well, obviously, when we started to where we are now, it's very different. So we let them come to us. It sounds like people won't believe that, but we do.
Okay.
So through social media, we get landlords reaching out to us, and then we decide, do we want to take that property on a rent to rent? Because there's some that, like, say it's fully furnished, and we think, oh, this is the type of property that is our highest earner. Let's definitely take that on a rent to rent. If we feel like 50% sure about it, but we think it could be good, then we might say to the landlord, well, we'd be happy to take this on the management model, where they're like obviously covering the setup costs, and then we're managing it and taking a percentage for our work. So we're mainly scaling up now on, we're still like rent to rent, obviously, because it's got us to where we are, but we're being more selective on those and trying to get more on the management side, so that then we've got like more of a
Balance.
yes, that's the word I was looking for, more of a balance.
Yeah. No, 100%. I've noticed myself as well that when you get to a certain level, it makes more sense to more focus on the management as opposed to the rent to rent, because the liabilities just become way too big.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, you get to a point, what happens when you get to a point where you have 100 rent to rents and you've got like £3 million in rent you need to guarantee, and then you have a flipping COVID or a world war, and you can't do it.
No.
You know what I mean? What happens then? Very important message I want to share with you about this business model right here. Now, of course, I've walked you through the process of what it looks like when we actually take on the properties ourselves and actually manage it as, rent to rent, service accommodation, whatever the case may be. But there is another option. And that option is very good, especially if you're not trying to restrict yourself to the money and funds that you have. And what I'm talking about is you finding a property, but instead of you taking it on for yourself, you're packaging it and selling it on to someone else for a fee. This is known as deal sourcing. And the average fee that people charge is around £3,000 to actually sell these deals on to other people. We do this ourselves. We've sold many deals in the past. A lot of our students have sold many deals in the past. And again, it's an excellent way for you to go about generating cash flow for your business without necessarily relying on the money or funds that you actually have sitting there. But there's two parts to deal sourcing. The first part comes with actually finding the property, which, I've walked you through pretty in depth earlier on. But the other part actually involves you finding investors or finding people willing to buy those deals from you. Now, a common and pretty decent way that you can go about actually finding people is by using Facebook. The really good thing about Facebook is that they have a lot of communities that you can join that are centered around property, rent to rents, service accommodation, amongst other things as well. So you can actually join these communities right here, and then you can actually, you know, go about locating the people that are interested in finding and buying these types of deals as well. And in this next video, I'm going to show you exactly how to go about doing that. Come take a look.
Now, when it comes to leveraging Facebook communities, you mainly want to focus on the ones that are centered around rent to rents, service accommodation, and also property as well. This is where you're going to find people that are looking for deals. And the reason why you're going to find people in these groups that are looking for deals is because in these same groups, you also have people that are promoting their deals as well. You have people that are constantly promoting deals, and then you have people that are commenting on those posts of those other people promoting deals that are identifying themselves, letting people know, hey, I'm interested and I'm looking for deals myself. Not only that, but even people that are interested, that are looking for deals themselves, sometimes they're putting posts out there, letting everybody know they're looking for deals. And with some of these Facebook groups, there are literally thousands upon thousands, if not tens of thousands of people in these groups that we can go about seeing who has potential. But what I'm going to do now, I'm actually going to show you how we're going to go about identifying these Facebook groups and the things to look out for. So let me show that to you right now. So I've just jumped on Facebook right now, and the group that I'm showing you right now, the rent to rent deals, SA and lease option deals group, this right here is probably the biggest rent to rent group there is on Facebook. So this is definitely a group that you definitely want to go about joining. If you're just typing in this name in the search bar, it will definitely come up. So as you can see, there's over 43,000 people in this group. You see why I'm saying that there could be so much potential with you to go about connecting with a lot of potential investors by utilizing the right Facebook groups, especially this one right here. Now, if I'm scrolling down, what you will see is a lot of people that are either posting deals, like this person right here, or people that are, you know, looking for deals themselves. So you'll just see so far, all we've seen is people just posting deals. This person right here has posted this specific deal, although it was a little while ago, rent to service accommodation. As you can see, 10 comments, all of these people commenting that they are interested. So all these people right here that are commenting they're interested, these are all potential investors that we can go about reaching out to, you know. So that's just, you know, that took me 2 seconds to find that post and to see the people that have commented on this specific post. And it could be the case for so many other posts that people are advertising deals on, and other people are commenting, expressing those interests, or sorry, their interest in those deals right here. As you can see with this post right here, view more comments, you'll see the exact same thing. I could literally be getting in touch with every single one of these people to see if they're still looking for deals and to see if I can go about helping them and supporting them too. So you'll see as I'm scrolling, you'll just see nothing but people posting their deals on this group and people commenting, expressing interest with those groups as well, or sorry, with those specific deals right there. So that's one way to actually go about it. Another little side tip for you is when you are joining these groups, what you want to do, you want to set your notifications on to be notified when people are posting. Now, even though there are a lot of people posting, yes, 100%, the reason why I'm suggesting that is because you have investors sometimes that post letting people know that they're looking for deals. Speed is everything in this game. If you could be the first person or one of the first people to reach out to those people that are posting, expressing interest in finding deals for themselves or looking for deal sources to find them deals, then you put yourself in a much better position than someone else that takes a very long time to get to them, or sorry, to get in touch with them. So that's just a little side note for you. Not only that as well, what we can do, you see the search bar right here? If we click on it, you can search, you can type in certain keywords in this specific group to, you know, have certain posts come up that have those keywords. So for example, let's say I put in, I'm looking for deals. I click enter. There we go. I literally just typed that keyword in right there. I just have this gentleman's post come up right here. What does it say? Hi, I'm looking for any rent to rent deals for myself in the Midlands. Let me know if you have anything. There's over 45 people that commented on this post. So by me typing in that keyword, it instantly identified someone that was looking for rent to rent deals instantly. So what do you think I can do? I can go about actually reaching out to this person, letting them know that I could help them and to see if they require more help and support. Another person, I'm looking for renter SA deals in Sheffield. Now, mind you, this was a little while ago they posted it, but he still could be looking, or they could still be looking. So we can definitely reach out to them. It's not a problem. I wouldn't let that put myself off at all, just because it's a little while ago. Most people are not reaching out to this person because it's quite some time ago, but I'm definitely reaching out to them. And all of these people right here that I can identify that are looking for deals, or that are either commenting in the comment sections, expressing interest, I'm reaching out to every single person. So that's just one thing that I typed in. I'm looking for deals. If I type in, I'm an investor, for example. Oh, I'm an investor. Let's see if anything else comes up. I'm looking for serious investors. Okay, this person says he's looking for serious investors. But look how many people commented, 86 people. We can reach out to all 86 of those people. And this wasn't that long ago, mind you. It was not that long ago at all. So that's another keyword that I just literally randomly came up at the top of my head. So we can definitely go about getting creative and typing in certain things in the search box that will allow us to determine what people are looking for. So if I'm a particular investor and I'm looking for a deal, there's going to be certain words that I use, that I put in my post, that I feel typing in the search box will definitely go about coming up. I'm an investor, for example, or oh, I'm looking for rent-to-rent deals, or oh, I'm looking for something passive or hands-free. You can just get creative and type all of these things in the search bar, and you can have all of these posts coming up. There's literally hundreds, if not thousands of people that have posted in this group right here. So you definitely want to go about doing that. And by the way, this is just one group. There's so many other groups that we can go about doing the exact same thing as well. There's this service accommodation group right here. That's quite a big group as well, although not as many people are promoting. This is more of a group where people are sharing value, asking questions, and whatnot have you. So what we can do if we're looking to search for groups to join, all we need to do is come to the search bar right here and just type in rent to rent, for example. And then we just go to groups. And then there'll be so many different groups that we can actually go about joining. A lot of these groups are in Dubai because I'm currently in Dubai as I'm shooting this video. If I'm typing in service accommodation, for example, let's just type that in as a very quick example. If I even spell it right, there we go. Type in groups. Or click groups, sorry. You see how many groups there are? We can go about literally joining all of these groups. Now, a little tip for you, you want to ideally join groups that are quite large. If you're joining groups where, for example, this group right here, 1.6k members, it's not that many members. And not only that as well, it says 3 posts a month. That shows me that this group is not active at all, compared to this group that has 3 posts per day, and it's got 4.2 thousand members. So you want to go for a group that's quite active, but also a group that actually has quite a lot of people as well, so you have more people to fish from. So that's just a little side tip for you, but there's loads of these groups that you can go about joining. Type in rent to rents, service accommodation, even property groups. You can even do the same thing with property groups in the UK that you can go about actually joining to leverage when it comes to finding investors. Now, one little side tip for you when it comes to approaching investors on Facebook, you don't want to approach them trying to sell them something straight away. This is what a lot of people do, and it puts a lot of potential investors off to even responding to them. I get so many people even messaging me on Facebook saying, hey, I've got this deal right here, or hey, I saw your post, I've got so many deals if you're interested, etc., etc. People don't want to be sold to, and you will just sound like everyone else if you're doing the exact same thing. How you want to do it instead is, if you've identified someone that's interested in having a deal sourced for them, you want to reach out to them and say, hey, look, John, I've seen that you've commented on a particular post expressing interest on a specific deal. I just wanted to reach out to see if you're still open to looking at deals from other deal sources. That could be one way you're going about it. You could say it in a slightly different way. But the main thing I'm trying to say is that you want to let them know, hey, John, I've just come across your post, or I've just come across your comment. I'm just reaching out to you because, I am someone that does get quite a lot of deals there, or can help you potentially. I just wanted to see if this is something that you're still interested in with regards to having deals sourced for yourself. So just be very calm, very cool, very chilled. Ask them the question, and if they're open to it, they'll let you know, and then you can go about actually having a chat with them. So Facebook communities is an excellent way for you to go about finding investors for yourself. The second really good way that you can go about finding investors for yourself to deal source to is by going to networking events. Now, when I say networking events, I don't just mean any networking events. There are a lot of events that you want to go about actively avoiding because it's just a big waste of time. Instead, the networking events that you want to pay attention to are paid networking events. The reason for this is a lot of people that attend paid networking events, these are people that are of a particular quality and a particular caliber, because when somebody pays, they pay attention. A lot of the times with free networking events, you have people that go there that want to just search for free information, they want to make friends, and they don't really have any serious intentions. Whereas when somebody pays to attend an event, by them paying, it shows that, okay, these people are very serious and they actually have very serious intentions when it comes to, finding people to do business with and connecting with the right people as well. Now, when it comes to actually finding networking events for you to attend, there's 2 apps that you want to go about downloading. One of them is called Eventbrite and the other one is called Meetup. Download these apps on your phone, and when you download them, make an account with them, and also just type in whichever area you're based in, or major large towns or cities nearby. Just type in property networking events and you'll see loads of them come up. But again, make sure you're going for paid ones and not free ones. This right here is very important. Even if it's just £10, £20, whatever the case may be. To be fair, the more expensive it is, the better, because this is when you're going to be targeting higher caliber people that are willing to spend money. So that part right there is a very good way for you to go about finding investors if you are going to buy it the right way. Make sure when you're going to these networking events, you're not just handing out business cards, you're not just pitching to everyone. Focus on actually building relationships with people, focus on nurturing that relationship. And then once you've built a nice relationship with them, you can let them know about the services that you're looking to offer, and the people that you're looking to connect with. This is very, very important. A lot of people just go to networking events and try to sell people straight away. They try to give them their business card. This doesn't work. Trust me. Focus on the relationship side of things. And then once you've actually developed a nice little relationship, once you've gotten to chatting to a few people, take their contact information and make sure you're following up with them the next day latest. This part right here is very important. So that's the second very good way that you can go about actually finding investors for yourself. The third one, and this one can be very, very powerful, but it's not as quick and it definitely takes a lot of time. And this right here is putting yourself out there on social media and actually posting content. Me, myself, I post a lot of content on social media on a regular basis. I share my journey with people. I share my story. I demonstrate my knowledge, my expertise, in the property space, in the rent-to-rent space, service accommodation space. People can see that, and people can see that I've been doing so for quite some time. And because of that, a lot of people have that trust and have that relationship built with me. And when it comes to them wanting to invest and get involved, they will just reach out to me because they've seen me put myself out there so many times. I get a lot of investors reaching out to me, wanting to invest and wanting to do business, just because I'm always putting myself out there and sharing knowledge and sharing game. If you're someone that's interested in putting yourself out there, you don't have to know everything about this specific game. You can just put yourself out there and just share your journey, let people know who you are, what you do, who you're looking to help. If you're going to view properties, make sure you're documenting that. Make sure you're showing people the deals that you're looking at, the investors that you're speaking to and who you're wanting to work with, and just share knowledge and game with people and just let people know who you are and what you do, and you will give yourself a massive, massive edge. If I'm being honest with you, most people don't actually go about doing this. So if you're able to do this and do this right, it will be so powerful. The main platform you want to focus on for this is Facebook and ideally Instagram as well. TikTok, not so much, but it can work too. Now look, these are just 3 rapid fire, quick ways that you can go about actually finding investors for yourself to go about deal sourcing too.
Now, I'm going to be finishing off with one of the private masterminds that we actually hosted for our students. So towards the end of this mastermind, we actually hosted a Q&A where we were answering the students' questions that they had. And some of these questions that they had were actually really, really good questions. Quite a few of them, a lot of people have before they're thinking about starting this business. It addresses a lot of doubts, a lot of objections that, again, people typically have before kickstarting this business off. So if you feel like there's still a few things in your mind that haven't been addressed, definitely take a look at this Q&A right here.
What would you guys do in the situation if another COVID happens again? Because obviously, if you're running them as self-accommodation, especially like yourself, Tyrone, a lot of them are generally through Airbnb and stuff. and if you haven't got that many direct bookings, what would you do to mitigate if a COVID happens again? And would it completely kill your business if COVID was to happen again? And what would be the way around? It will be for the three of you, but I think there's got loads of reasons.
Yeah, COVID was actually actually a good opportunity because you know, bookings actually didn't slow down. People thought it did, but bookings actually didn't slow down in during COVID. So there was key workers traveling, and actually people were actually booking direct more because, you know, if you was to book with a hotel, they would ask for proof that you've got travel, this and this and that. But if you were to book with like a small business owner, Airbnb like myself, I'm not going to look at that stuff. So during COVID, what I've noticed an increase in like couples booking, because I think they were getting a bit. Some of them were saying they just needed to book it because they were just separated from their partner and they were just desperate. So like they were just, yeah, they were separated from their partner. They couldn't go to a hotel, so they thought, let me book direct with this guy. So people were desperate because like being separated from their partner, couldn't see each other. Booking through Airbnb, like direct through myself, was the only way for them to like, you know. People were getting desperate. So I was actually getting a high percentage of direct bookings at that time.
Okay.
And also, it was an amazing opportunity because the government was issuing out grants, so free grants for what happened, and you know the lockdowns. People were getting grants.
Grow during that time.
I was able to grow as much. Bigger than I ever did during COVID.
During COVID,
yeah, because of you were getting free grants. And I was still getting bookings as well.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
What were landlords' attitudes like at these times? Because like they must have been worried as well.
So landlords were reducing rent by 30%.
Okay.
So you were getting 30% discount on rent because they were struggling to get people moving in. So they were slashing their rent by 30%. Compared to market. So it was probably an amazing opportunity for someone to get into SA. You can get a discount.
So it's an opportunity.
It's more of an opportunity, I would say.
So another thing I'll add as well is that when you have a property, that's a very powerful thing. So I don't know who studied business studies, but there's this thing called Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Yeah, that's it. And a place to live is one of them. And yeah, okay, you have a property, you're running out of service accommodation, but you still have a property. So even if potentially service accommodation goes out here, because obviously Tyrone did well during COVID, but some people actually shut down and closed down.
Yeah.
I think Sean, actually, he was operating during COVID, wasn't he? And that's when he transformed from service accommodation to temporary accommodation. Yeah. So when you have a property, you have a very powerful tool. It's up to you as a business owner, okay, cool. I got this tool, this is the situation that I'm in, what can I do with it? And if you're very creative, you can still make money out of that property.
You know, I want to answer that as well. I want to answer that. I want to kind of add on to what you guys said in two different ways. The first way, 100%. What's it called? Tyrone's 100% right, because I told you guys I got started in COVID, and then I was noticing a similar thing to where like landlords were offering mad discounted rent. And to be fair, I say it took me a crazy long time to get a yes, but there were landlords that actually were open to it, but then it was just like a shabby property and I didn't want it. If that makes sense. So that's the first thing. But also the second thing, and this is the more important one, and this is me answering it from like a different angle. What I've learned, and not just from my own experience, but this is more something I've learned from, because I listen to like a lot of podcasts of like people that are like super successful and stuff, and these are guys that have been in the game for a very, very long time. Like we're talking decades. And when you're in the game for that long, you go through all the different cycles. You go through the super highs and you go through the super duper crises to where, hey, you're borderline finished. And and I know it's like a common theme between, you know, these different people that I was listening to, and it just simply came down to how you were reacting to the crisis. Because most people, when a crisis happens, they start panicking. They start like, you know, they don't know what to do. You know, everything's going sideways and everything's collapsing, and there's so much uncertainty, and it gets the best of most people. I'm not gonna lie to you.
And that's why more businesses fail than not, because when crises do happen, and believe me, they will happen. If you're in business for long enough, there will be times when you will be put to the test where it's like, oh wow, like I think I'm gonna go out of business. Like that's gonna happen, regardless. It depends how you react during that time. If you're someone that lets it get the better of you, then it's a sad story, it's a sad day. But if you're, again, it goes back to what I said before, what's going on up here? If you're able to just stay in the game and just keep pushing through that and just ride through that and just see the opportunity from that as well, because there's always opportunities in everything. COVID times. Yeah, there was a lot of people that got wiped out during COVID, 100%, because I've heard it. I wasn't in the game there and then, but I did hear it. But at the same time, Tyrone even said, like, that's the time when you grow your business the most.
Yeah.
So on the one extreme, people got wiped out. On the other extreme, you were able, like Tyrone was able to, experience massive growth. What's the difference?
So I've got a question. So with someone that's just like trying to scale their business, start up, yeah, but they're working full time, long hours, pretty much every other day. Like, what advice would you give?
I think there's a difference between being productive and busy. I feel like a lot of people are busy, not productive. And I say that because even me myself, I still work full time. Yeah, I'm still growing a 6-figure business. So my thing is how much do you want it? The only thing you have to sacrifice on this is sleep. So you've got to put in some ridiculous hours now for later on to benefit, delayed gratification. So I definitely think working long hours is just a case of how much are you willing to sacrifice after you get back. Do you want to chill and play games, or do you want to actually look in and listen to some content to grow your business? So you got to look at it like that as well.
I'm gonna add on to that, but I'm gonna add an extreme version of that just to put into a bit of context. You've got parents, right?
Yeah.
So let's just say this is a hypothetical extreme. Your parents were to get kidnapped. Let's say your mom got kidnapped, and they were gonna take her life, unless you were able to, start off hypothetically in this business right here and able to get it to the point where you've secured 10 amount of properties within a certain amount of time. Let's say 3 months or so. Let's say 3 months. Otherwise, your mom's gone. Like, you're probably not going to be thinking about sleep.
Yeah.
Do you get what I'm saying? You're probably not going to be thinking about anything aside from making that work, because that's how fixated your mind is. So the reason why I bring that extreme example up is because if we're able to kind of get the way we think and the way our mental operating system in the same frame as that situation right there, like, again, I don't see how you're not making it happen, because you ain't got a choice.
What would you say to someone who's like concerned about saturation?
I think saturation is a very small-minded mindset, to be honest. Like what Yusuf is saying, you need to get to a point where no matter what you're doing, you're going to dominate. You know what I'm saying? And even if there are thousands of people doing it, if you're going to dominate, what does that mean? That means you're going to be doing it better than everyone else. The best person, you're going to be better than them. And so, if you want to be average, if you want to be like everyone else, that's when saturation has to be a concern. If you're going to be the #1 player, top 5%, top 1%, saturation should never be a question that comes into your mind.
Just to kind of answer that as well, we're in the Radisson Blue Hotel. Yeah, we're in a hotel. These guys I think like a 4 or 5 star hotel, and they got hotels across the world, a big hotel chain. Let me ask you guys a question. Yeah, so it's a very simple question. Do you think the chairmen, the shareholders of the Radisson Blue Hotel are sitting down in the boardroom and they're wanting to put a pause on expanding or not taking on any more deals because they're worried the market is saturated? Put your hands up if it's yes, they are thinking that. Why? I was surprised, bro. I thought you had your hands up. No, but on the real though, why?
It's the best, one of the best, so that we keep expanding.
Because they dominate. That's why. There's always going to be room for the top operators to clean up. It's the people that that operate in the bottom percentage, you know, the bottom whatever, that have those thoughts and that have those mindsets. Now I'm not saying that to be like, hey, you are below average, and you know what I mean, but it's more so like, hey, you have to change your way of thinking about that. Not just yourself, because I've heard loads of people talk about that as well. Yeah, it's just, you know, God, what was you gonna say?
I was going to say, to add to that as well, I think you've got to look at the numbers around saturation, quote unquote saturation. Like, people say temporary accommodation is saturated, but the data says otherwise. Like, again, the government are projected to spend 3.2 billion next year on temporary accommodation. How can that be saturated? Even when you look at Airbnb as well, you've got to look at the growth of Airbnb. So if you're saying something's saturated, you have to look at the data. And the data with Airbnb and temporary accommodation suggests that it's not getting saturated. I think saying it's saturated is probably what you see on social media. Maybe a lot of the content you see on social media is property. But that's why you would probably assume. But if you actually look at the numbers, again, numbers don't lie, you'll see that it's far from saturation. Makes sense?
To add to what Yusuf said about the top people, the chairmen, and that they're always growing, I think there's a quote that said there's competition at the bottom, partnership at the top. So once you reach a certain stage and stuff like that, it's not about, oh, is it saturated? There's so many more opportunities when you're at the top. In the bottom is competition because everyone's trying to fight for the same thing, so you think it's saturated. The competition starts at the bottom, and once you get through that part and you're on the top, you're going to be sitting with people that are looking at partnership rather than competing against you and stuff like that. So I think that's how the big dogs stay on top. They don't look at, like what you said, Radisson Blu isn't looking at Holiday Inn and going, bro, look, they've got 100 hotels here, we've only got 80, you might as well leave it to them. They go, nah, if they've got 100, that means we should be able to reach 150 if they've done 100, stuff like that. Because everyone knows the same game at the top and everyone's trying to help each other. It's just at the bottom, there's so much competition because everyone's trying to drag each other down to just get that one step above, that crab mentality. So I think a lot of people are on the bottom saying it doesn't work. A lot of people are at the bottom at the beginning saying, oh, it's saturated. But as soon as you do something and you make it happen and you see stuff working, so many doors open. I think even I've experienced that myself. Just wanted to add that in.
No, it's a good one.
Yeah, and also to add to that, even if you were worried about saturation, just study the competition and see what they're lacking. Like, you can stand out on. So, for example, let's say none of the competition are providing parking. Okay, you can secure a parking spot and advertise that you're offering free secure parking. Now you're the only person in that location offering free secure parking. Suddenly you've provided an amenity that none of the competition provide. Is it saturated now? No, because you're the only person offering parking in the whole area. So you can look at amenities that are very lacking in that location, provide those standout amenities that none of the competition are offering. Suddenly, saturation is only affecting them because customers are now seeing you're providing something that's standing out completely to the rest of everyone in the competition.
And you'll be surprised, so just to add on to that, you'll be surprised how many people are lazy businessmen or lazy businesswomen. They literally put in the bare minimum. I've seen people with Airbnb listings where they still got phone pictures on there. They can't even bother to put professional pictures. The parking thing, they can easily get parking, but they just can't bother. Their review score is constantly saying something's wrong, but they don't fix it. Those are the sort of people that, if you're worried about saturation, those are the sort of people that you need to be worried about. But if you're someone who can easily just be different to them, fix those things, add the amenities that they don't, get professional pictures, like do the things that the lazy people don't want to do, already